Hello, whoever and wherever you may be. I'm James Randi. Or did you guess? There are well-accepted accounts from the Bible that Christians and others never question. Events and locations that are part of the story told of Christ and his history. One such is the account in John 1 of the birth of Christ in the lower Galilee town of Nazareth. This town is not mentioned at all in the Old Testament, nor in any of the extensive rabbinical literature, and the only established site there is the ancient town water well, now referred to, no surprise, as Mary's Well. The modern town is covered with churches, also no surprise, and though archaeology offers no support at all for them, the Nazarenes can point out sites such as Joseph's carpentry shop and the spot where Mary received the Annunciation, the message from the angel Gabriel that she was pregnant with Jesus, as well as the exact location of Mensa Christi, the table where Jesus dined with his apostles after his resurrection, and the site of the synagogue where Jesus preached as a lad. But Nazareth may be overrated as an historical site that proves the inerrancy of the Bible. Author René Somme has written The Myth of Nazareth, the Invented Town of Jesus, a book that effectively demonstrates the controversial archaeology of the town where the Bible has Jesus Christ being born. Of course, the religious faction has reacted furiously to the book, specifically in the Bulletin of the Anglo-Israeli Archaeological Society, BAIAS, which devotes some 47 pages to 5 angry rebuttals. There is, we are told, an ambitious commercial enterprise presently under construction in Nazareth to rescue the facts about Jesus' hometown. It's a resort known as Nazareth Village. It is designed to eventually contain streets and several dozen stone houses inhabited by actors and storytellers in authentic garb, who will illuminate the life and teachings of Jesus, a notion perhaps inspired by the phenomenal success of Disneyland, where Tinkerbell and Mickey Mouse are seen flitting and strolling about, also in authentic garb. As of 10 years ago, an international consortium of Christian groups called the Miracle of Nazareth International Foundation had raised some $60 million for the project, with contributors in the U.S. such as former President Jimmy Carter, Pat Boone, and Reverend Reggie White, formerly a Green Bay Packer football star. Scholars associated with the Nazareth Village Project, Stephen Fahn, Yehuda Rapuano, and Ross Voss, none of them archaeologists, now say that evidence has been discovered there for a town that existed at the time of Jesus, a settlement before the First Jewish War that took place in 70 CE. This evidence was simply lying on the open surface of the site, they say. This claim, author Somme shows, is bogus, and it results from misdating, mislabeling, misinterpreting, and from pure invention. These artifacts and facts were somehow missed by the previous crowds of professional archaeologists who have been digging on that site for the last century. The Nazareth Village Resort lies on a 15-acre plot of land called the Nazareth Village Farm, the NVF. The scholars under discussion surveyed the farm, dug on it, and published a lengthy report in the 2007 issue of the BAIAS Journal. There is little difficulty to show that their evidence for a town there, 11 small pieces of pottery shards, actually dates as late as the 2nd century CE, and Somme's research shows that the rest of the material from the Nazareth site dates well after the time of Jesus Christ. There simply is no demonstrable evidence from the Nazareth site that dates to the time of Jesus Christ and to Hellenistic times. In fact, one awkward fact after the other stands in the way of such a claim. For example, the Church of the Annunciation at Nazareth, the largest Christian structure in the Middle East, is a primary destination of Christian pilgrims to the Holy Land. Of course, it is there that the faithful believe Mary received the Annunciation from the Archangel Gabriel at her home, but the existence of a number of tombs directly under the structure, firmly established by archaeologists, is just impossible, since, for the faithful, tombs have no place under such a structure. According to Jewish religious law, Jews cannot live in the vicinity of tombs, which are a prime source of ritual impurity. So the ancient commentary on Jewish law mandates that tombs must be located outside of the village proper. Thus, tombs under the house of Mary are denied by the tradition. These post-Iron Age tombs are also post-Jesus, Middle Roman and later, and the wealth of pottery found in them is also later. Consider continuing pilgrimage to Nazareth, which fortifies the convictions of the true believer while supporting the community financially, depends on the sanctity and the reputation of the site. As author Psalm points out, perhaps the entire Jesus story depends on it too. He also tells us not to be too surprised if remarkable finds at Nazareth conveniently appear in the next few years, finds that substantiate a settlement there at the time of Christ. To fit the demands of the Christian tradition, the upcoming material will have to be early and non-funereal. And just recently, as if Psalm himself had prophetic powers, the NVF now reports that a cache of Hellenistic and early Roman coins has recently been found at Mary's Well, at the northern end of the Nazareth Basin. But strangely, nothing even remotely similar had ever been found there before in the entire century of professional digging about. A cache of Hellenistic and early Roman coins, a bonanza for any archaeologist, is exactly the sort of evidence which the believers need in order to decide the matter in their favor. But the earliest coin found there dates to about 350 CE. In fact, a 2006 report from the Israeli Antiquities Authority, signed by the archaeologists who dug at the Mary's Well site, mentions no early coins at all, when coins found in wells are very frequent discoveries. The only datable coins she found there were from the 14th and 15th centuries after Jesus. The facts are that no demonstrable evidence dating either to the time of Jesus or to earlier Hellenistic times has been found at Nazareth. It is a late Roman Byzantine village, not a mythical settlement at the turn of the era. As author Psalm says, that question has already been answered, and answered convincingly. Here we have a parallel with the situation re-evidenced for the parapsychological miracles. For generations, the believers who support the Nazareth myth have been defending their case by demanding, "Prove me wrong." When empiricists come up with the required facts, they discover that the facts don't seem to matter to those people. They also know that there's no way to disprove a myth. Psalm notes, as I have, that no one can prove that Santa Claus doesn't exist, for example. We can go to the North Pole, we can dig up there all we want, and we can find absolutely no evidence for his gift manufacturing facility, nor for his team of flying reindeer. All the believer has to say, under those circumstances, is, well, you just didn't look in the right places, or he's hiding, or even, he's invisible. Ooh. Measuring chimneys, tracing gifts back to the factories in China where they were made, and discovering that the serial numbers on watches were stamped there in a little Swiss town, those things prove nothing to the true believer. The mythology of Jesus is every bit as weird. Oh, one additional fact. There are the so-called venerated sites at which the various Franciscan pseudo-archaeologists have been digging for the last century or so. They were situated where they are to make them fit, as much as could be done, the requirements of the Gospel's description. For example, according to Luke 4, verses 16 to 30, quote, "He came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read." He spoke some controversial words. "And all they in the synagogue, when they heard these things, were filled with wrath, and rose up, and thrust him out of the city, and led him unto the brow of the hill, whereupon their city was built, that they might cast him down headlong." End of quote. By the way, Jesus escaped by some sort of subterfuge, but we don't have to get into that. But let's examine these infallible facts, shall we? According to these holy words, said to be written by St. Luke himself, there was a synagogue at Nazareth. But extensive archaeological excavation, over a century, remember, has only found the city well, nothing else. Not one stone of construction remaining from this temple, anywhere in the vicinity. Also, there is no Nazareth hill, thus no brow of the hill, nor cliff exists, or existed, within the last 100,000 years. There is no such elevation, nor is there any reasonable place where such a cliff could have existed. The bare fact is that no evidence of buildings or cliffs of any kind dating to the turn of the era has ever been found at these venerated sites. The tourists are barking up the wrong tree. St. Luke, and thus the inerrant Bible, was plainly, demonstrably dead wrong. Shall we also question the rest of the Holy Bible? Yes, I think so. The term bright I don't much care for, but hey, we did the best we could with it. I was with Richard Dawkins in Clearwater, Florida, and I had a few other people who brainstormed and came up with the idea of having the brights. I think I was maybe the third or fourth person to sign the membership roster. And a bright is someone who thinks logically and rationally, bases his or her decisions upon rationality, upon logic, and upon evidence. That's the major thing right there. And if we don't have evidence, we can express our belief or lack of belief in it, but it has to be provisional. I believe that this is probably true, though I don't have any evidence for or against it. It's a perfectly safe statement. And so Brights base all of their decisions and their beliefs on logic, rationality, and on evidence. That's the thing in which they differ from the average person who takes anything that comes along that looks attractive. Oh, I like that. I think I'll believe in it. Not that I know. I am an atheist, tried and true. I have been since I was, I guess about this tall. I'm only about this tall now. And I made up my mind that I was going to investigate all these things and question them. I went to Sunday school. I was tossed out of Sunday school immediately, but it gave me 25 cents that I could have put in the contribution plate there, see, when they passed the plate around. And I found out that at Purdy's drugstore you could buy a 2-flavor ice cream sundae for 25 cents. And that was a great discovery of my childhood, I must say, and I took full advantage of it. My parents, bless them, never found out, and I went off every Sunday morning as if going to Sunday school, but I lied. And I'm ashamed to admit it now, and if my dad and mom were up there someplace, or down there someplace, I have no idea, I asked them to forgive me.
I'm highly skeptical, sure. But what is that skepticism based on? If you're skeptical as well, have you asked yourself, upon what do I base my skepticism? Are you just plain ornery? You just don't want to go along with the rest of the thing? Do you know some other people who believe in it that are really pretty dense and you don't want to join their group? You've got to have a reason, I think, for yourself and for others as to why you are skeptical. These things are not likely to be true. Therefore, you need proof of them. Now, you're not required, or am I certainly required, to prove a negative. I can't do that. I can't prove telepathy doesn't exist. I remember getting a question years ago. A lady stood up in the aisle and said, "Can you prove to me that ESP doesn't exist?" And I said, "No, I can't, ma'am." She sat down, with her arms folded. That was a victory for her. And then I went on to explain, I can't prove a negative. My question is, do you believe in it? She says, absolutely. I said, can you prove that it is so? She said, well, I'm quite convinced of it. That's not my question. Can you prove that it ain't so, or that it is so? Not that you can't prove that it ain't so. Can you prove that it is so? You're the one making the claim. And they are the folks making the claims. We're not. We skeptics, as Michael Schoenberg clearly pointed out, we're not in the business of debunking. If I were in the business of debunking, and I've often had that label pinned on me, and I've always resented it, and I've denied it, if I were in the business of debunking, it means I go into an investigation convinced that this ain't so, and I'm going to show you that it isn't. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have an advocacy position to take. I'm convinced this isn't so. I don't care what the evidence is. I'm somehow going to prove that it ain't so. No. I go into the thing investigating. Now, to be perfectly fair with you, let's be real for a minute. Well, all the way through this, I hope. I can't prove a negative, it's true. But I go into this thing, I say, prepared to be shown. Am I prejudiced against it? Oh, yes. I have to admit that. After all, if you've been sitting by a chimney for 63 years on the evening of December the 24th, and a fat man in a red suit has never bounced down the chimney, all you can say is 100% of my evidence shows me that this is not necessarily so. I don't have any proof that it is. And what's more important, folks, is this one fact: it's not very likely to be true based upon what you already know. Now, I often end my lectures with this little illustration. People will ask the question endlessly. Can you show that it ain't so? No. Then I got you. No. You have to prove to me, since you say it is so, that it is so. Suppose I illustrate for you, I think rather well, but you'll be the judge of that in a moment, whether or not you can prove a negative. Let's take Santa Claus. That's a very good example. Well, around the end of December, I'm awfully popular, I must admit, in the street, and I have kids almost worshiping me. I'm sorry if they're disillusioned later on, but who knows? It wasn't my fault. I didn't tell them the myth in the first place. You have to examine the Santa Claus thing by specific means. Now, there's one way you can go around and measure chimneys. But that's not much of a, he does come in the back door, I'm told, occasionally, if the chimney's occupied, or it's too small. So that's not much of a way of investigating it. Flying reindeer, there's a good way. Hey, that we can test. Oh, please, don't tell the ASPCA about this. I don't really want to do the experiment. I must say that in advance. I really don't want to do the experiment, but let's just walk through it as if I were doing the thing. Okay, let's name some numbers now. Okay, select by some randomizing process, 1,000 reindeer. Okay? And you get them all together in a reindeer truck or something. I don't know what you put reindeer in. And a whole bunch of people with whips or, I don't know, what do you do with reindeer? But anyway, get some people who know how to handle reindeer and stick them up on top of the World Trade Center in New York. You're laughing and you're making assumptions now. I can't have that. You're going to test whether or not reindeer can fly, okay? So I'll sort of walk through it with you, if you'll bear with me. You have a guy there with that's a dirty laugh, lady. I want to say, but I like it. Keep it up. You go on the top of the the World Trade Center, and you have your 1,000 reindeer there. I put numbers on the side, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 1,000. Big numbers so you can see them. And you have a guy with a videotape camera, lots of pads of paper and whatnot, and pens at work. And you say, okay, the time is now 10 past 10 in the morning. Okay, first experiment, number 1, please. And number 1 up to the edge. And ready? Okay, video camera going. Good. Push. Write down no. Really no. Number 2, push. Well, now I don't know what the result of the experiment will be. I suspect strongly what it will be based upon my meager knowledge of the aerodynamics of the average reindeer, though I'm not an expert on it, and based upon previous accounts of what reindeer can and cannot do. I think we are going to end up with a pile of very unhappy and broken reindeer at the foot of the World Trade Center, and probably a couple of policemen standing outside a squad car saying, I don't know, but here comes another one. Now, it gets better. I won't throw any more reindeer, I promise. Now, what have we proven with this experiment? Have we proven that reindeer cannot fly? No, of course not. Think about it now. We have only shown that on this occasion, under these conditions of atmospheric pressure, temperature, radiation, all these sort of things, at this position geographically, on the season, etc., that these 1,000 reindeer either could not fly or chose not to. Now, if the second, then we know something certainly about the IQ of the average reindeer in this group. However, we have not proven a negative. We cannot prove a negative technically and rationally and philosophically speaking. However, people will often look at this example and say, well, how many reindeer would you have to test? Now, I'm not going to get into the statistics of the thing. Art Benjamin can handle that for you. I'm not going to get into the arguments on the matter. I will only tell you that you cannot prove a negative, and I think that's a rather good example of it that you might wish to use in illustrating your point. The other folks who claim that it is so are required to prove it. And if it's so, it's very easy. Just show me one flying reindeer. Of course, then they come up with the rationalizations and they say, oh no, it's only the 8 tiny reindeer that live at the North Pole who can and will, on the evening of December the 24th, fly to do that specific job. In that case, you have to throw up your hands and say, well, I don't think your hypothesis is very testable.
Magical thinking, is a slippery slope. Sometimes it's harmless enough, but other times it's quite dangerous. Personally, I'm opposed to that kind of fakery, so I have no reservations at all about exposing these people and their illusions for what they really are.
I've investigated the claims of hundreds of psychics. People aren't always happy with my conclusions, but I do have my supporters. In 1986, I was honored with a MacArthur Award. Unfortunately, most of the prize money went into defending myself against a series of libel suits related to one of my earliest and most controversial investigations. The subject was Uri Geller, a young Israeli who claimed to have supernatural powers.
His remarkable affinity for metal and his psychic abilities are well documented all over the world.
In the early 1970s, Geller became a superstar, the most famous psychic in the world.
Okay, just a second, look at me. Visualize everything that you drew once more.
He claimed to read people's minds.
I'm gonna show what I got, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, but it really came very strong in. It could be 2 mountains with a round thing on, or 2 people.
Can I show?
Yeah, I'd like to. Am I wrong?
You're right.
I'm right. Good. That's what I got. Oh, it's...
He claimed to bend keys with his mind.
I know you're going to think this is a setup, friends, and old Tom has never conned you on anything. This guy is bending this key by rubbing it. It was bent at about a 1 degree angle when you started out, and it's coming up on 45 degrees now and still moving.
You're thinking bend, is that what you're doing?
Yes, I'm saying bend.
You're saying bend,
yes.
Hard, soft?
No, I'm saying bend, 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 and sometimes I say bend, baby.
But Geller was best known for his way with spoons.
Hold the tip of the spoon very, very gently.
Okay.
What I'm doing is I'm trying to melt the metal down. Yes, you see, I feel it.
It's
yes,
going.
It's getting loose.
Yeah.
And there's no force at all in my hands. Yes, look what's happening.
There's no force at all.
Look, the whole, you see, it's becoming like plastic.
Ready to fall off.
It's, and touch it here where I'm stroking it. There is absolutely no...
That is eerie. I have a wisdom tooth.
If you can see, the metal is beginning to crack here.
It's breaking.
Yeah, see
And
what's...
he's just
Look,
doing
it's becoming, it's like
Look,
putty
finish it.
wax. You see? Look. And keep stroking
look at
it
this.
here. You see the... No, don't. You see the crack is becoming bigger.
Yep.
I melt the metal down, so
How?
I want it to bend. I just say bend.
Yeah, you melted it.
You see? Now wait a minute. Keep stroking your keys more. And people at home, want your watches to start working, or if there is a radio that is broken, want it to start working. Television broken, just wanted all those broken things. Now,
What Geller was saying, effectively, was that wanting things could make them so. I felt that claim had to be challenged. The media, even some scientists, were taking the Geller phenomena seriously. So I decided to show, for starters, that I could at least duplicate these effects using trickery. Now, a key can be displayed in such a way that it looks like it's bending. For example, just by stroking it, you'd swear that it's bending right up before your eyes. Magicians call this process ratcheting. But to do this, the key has to be bent in advance. The hard part, of course, is how to go about bending the key without letting them catch you.
Now, there are several ways. I could, for example, take it and press the tip against the top of the table. That would do it. Or, in shifting my chair backwards or forwards, as I just did, I could have taken it and dropped it below the level of the table and pressed the tip on the chair I'm sitting on, which is exactly what I just did. Did I fool you? Mentalists have been duplicating hidden drawings for years. If Mr. Geller had chosen to use trickery, he could have used any of a number of techniques. One favorite involves turning your back and covering your eyes while the drawing is being made. Now, I've always wondered why you would cover your eyes while your back is turned. But melting metal is something else again. It's done something like this. And it gets soft. So I say to it, bend, 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 and it bends. Of course, it does take a little preparation. In fact, it takes a lot of preparation. Now, this isn't proof positive that other demonstrations aren't the result of supernatural power, but isn't this a more reasonable explanation? And then, of course, there was Mr. Geller's appearance on The Tonight Show. I got a call after they booked him to appear.
Would you welcome, please, Uri Geller.
Johnny had been a magician himself and was skeptical. I was asked to help prevent any trickery.
Nice to see you.
Thanks.
We have only met...
This scares me.
This scares you? Well, this is we just got some things together here. And
I told them to provide their own props and not to let Geller or his people anywhere near them.
Also, one of our staff members did some drawings which have been sealed in an envelope, and I'd like you to take your own pace when you feel like you want to try anything.
Right.
Do you want to try that particular experiment first?
When I'll feel free.
When
Okay?
you... Sure.
We'll start eliminating the ones that do not have the water.
All right, without touching them.
He is really suspicious, you know. I'm having a hard time with you.
Look, I don't mean to be, Uri. I really don't.
Just keep looking. Okay, let me rest a little, all right?
All right.
You know, I'm surprised because before this program, your producer came and he read me at least 40 questions you're going to ask me.
Well, I can ask you all kinds of questions if you'd like me to ask you questions.
I have to have time. And,
John, we are back. Uri was telling me you don't feel what, strong tonight?
I don't
Is that?
feel strong. It's not all tonight. Right now I'm feeling being pressed and then I can't...
Well, I'm not trying to press you. I really not.
No, you're only telling me, well, will you try that or that or that?
Well, I thought that was the idea of no, I'm not trying to put you down.
Much to my surprise, the Tonight Show episode didn't have much effect on Uri Geller's career. Neither did the book that I wrote about him. But eventually, his star faded. Why people are so drawn to the irrational is something that has always puzzled me. I want to be, if I can, as sure of the world, the real world around me, as is possible. Now, you can only attain that to a certain degree, but I want the greatest degree of control. I've never involved myself in narcotics of any kind. I don't smoke. I don't drink, because that can easily just fuzz the edges of my rationality, fuzz the edges of my reasoning powers, and I want to be as aware as I possibly can. That means giving up a lot of fantasies that might be comforting in some ways, but I'm willing to give that up in order to live in an actually real world, as close as I can get to it.
I would like to invite two big, strong gentlemen, the bigger and better, on the stage to come and do a little demonstration with me here. Do you have a couple of gentlemen that would like to volunteer to come up here? People that I don't know, of course. Come on. Oh, there's one right there. Yeah, come on. You don't have to ask. Yeah, right there. If you want to come, sir. Yeah, sure. Climb up the stage. Either end will do, or right in the middle if you're going to be real macho about it. There you go. Hi. What is your name?
True.
That's true. And your name? You can stand over this side if you would, sir. Now, do either one of you happen to have a piece of rope about that long, maybe? No? Well, by a strange and somewhat contrived coincidence, I do. Now, this is a piece of what they call sash cord. Would you hold on to that end, sir? That's your end. Would you hold on to this end? That's your end. I want you to pull on it very tightly and make sure it's good and strong. Is it good and strong? Okay, let me see. Yes, very strong. Okay. I'm going to remove my wristwatch and put it away in a safe place. It's a value judgment I have to make. See, let go of the rope now. It's mine after all. Now, I'm going to ask these two gentlemen, using this simple piece of rope, to tie my hands together, one on top of the other like that, in such a way that I shouldn't be able to remove it or free myself, right? Right. Wrong, because there's a trapdoor right there. You press the button, and away he goes. Okay. Now, grab your end of the rope again, please, sir. There's your end right there. Making a knot. Grab your end, sir. Pull on it very tightly. Whoa, the pain. That's fine. I'll bring my hand around on top. Tie the other hand on top, if you would, please. Don't catch the suit, and if you tear the suit, I'll have to buy it. Okay, tear on it. Come on, really pull on it now. That's it. Tie another knot on top of that. Whoa. Another knot. And if you have enough rope, you can tie a third knot if you want. Is there enough rope? Yep. Damn. Okay. Tie one more knot on top of it then. Okay, you got it now? Yes. Okay, is that knot really tight now? Is that triple knot? Whoa, should be good and tight. There you go. Okay, now I need, that chair over there. Would you get that chair for me, sir, please? Bring it right over here on the stage. Yeah, right here. That's it. Yeah, turn it around for the other. Okay, now. Oh, the rope seems to have fallen off. Now, wait a minute, wait. We're only beginning to get started here. You've got a, would you slip off that jacket just for a second for me, please? Clean shirt? I'm glad to see that. Okay, now, I'm going to sit down in this chair, and we're going to do this all over again. This time, I'll be seated. Look at that crowd in the doorway. Is that the ones with the pitchforks and the torches? Okay, I'm going to pass the rope underneath the legs. Come closer. I never bite a spectator. Well, seldom. Hold on to your end again, please. Hold on to your end. That's it. Pull on it very tightly now. Right down that. And bring it up on top and make a knot. Don't tie the thumbs. Those are the pink ones. Okay. Pull on it now. That's it. Put your finger in the knot. Tie another knot on top of that one. Whoa. I got the right guys. Or the wrong guys. One way or the other. I didn't give you too much rope, did I? I'm no fool. Okay. Okay. That's pretty good. Your shoes don't fall off before noon, do they? Okay. Okay, pull on it. Very good. Oh, okay. Whoa. You can see the hands are a little tight. Okay, would you take your jacket there, please? And when I say go, not just yet, I'll let the folks over there see you. That's it. Didn't want to cheat you. Okay. Now, when I say go, just bring the jacket around so as to cover my hands and up to my elbows on this side. Ready? Okay, wait a minute. Left over, right. Okay, I think we can do that. Okay, bring it around. That's it. Just cover up the hands. And no. Stand. You got the people there. No, you didn't get the idea. No. Take it off again. Take it off. That's it. Let's try this again. Let's try it one more time. Where'd it go? Oh, there you go. All right. Just bring it around on the top. You get the idea, I think, ladies and gentlemen. How about a big round of applause for the two gentlemen that came out to help me? You get your shirt. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Oh, well. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Princeton. I want to thank each and every one of you individuals. You've been a wonderful audience for me this evening. I just hope that somewhere along the line, I've gotten the message across. Think about these things. Don't accept them because you're told them endlessly. Think, do critical thinking, and support us by getting in on our webpage, taking a look at how you can help us out. www.randi.org. I invite you to take a look. I think you'll find it entertaining. Thank you, Princeton. Thank you very much. Good night. Oh. I took up the escape artistry thing on a peculiar sort of event. It was I was working in Quebec City at the Folie Royale, I think it was called, a nightclub there, and a couple of cops came by and were eyeing me from the side of the stage, and they came to me afterwards and showed me a pair of handcuffs and said, "Could you get out of these?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, sure. They're simple locks. And, well, we'll see you after the show." And I said, "Yeah, sure, okay," thinking I would never see them again. I packed up and I was leaving the dressing room, and suddenly they showed up in the stairway. I said, "Oh, I forgot about that." So I went downstairs and they put a pair of handcuffs on me out in the street, much to the amusement of people passing by, I can assure you. And they opened the squad car door for me. I got in one side and got out the other side with the handcuffs off. Now that sort of got their attention because they hadn't seen that before. But I will confide in you that handcuff locks are very, very simple locks. And I was pretty well set up for it and ready for it. But they looked at me in some astonishment and said, "Well, did you think you could break out of our jail?" And I said, "Well, show me the jail." Oh, they put me in the back of the squad car and off we went. And the next morning, the headlines on the Quebec Soleil, was the name of the paper, came out with "L'étonnant Randi s'évade de la prison de Québec." That means the amazing Randy, and I'd never used that title before. Up until then, I was the Great Randall, you see. But the amazing Randy escapes from the jail of Quebec, or the Quebec jail. It made a bit of news, and when I went to the nightclub that night, the manager met me at the door. He said, "Forget the birds and the rings and all that sort of thing." He said, "Do something in the escape business." So I went out there and I did a thing, and that's how I got into it. But it made a good reputation for me. I broke out of 22 jails around the world in my career, and all legally, that is. Yes, I've never actually been locked up in one where well, there was one occasion. I won't get into the details. Well, it wasn't much of a feat really at the time, I must say, because I was much younger. He was 52 at the age when he did that, and I was, I think, 22. So I had the advantage, the physical advantage over old Harry. And so I took a certain amount of credit for it, but I did break his record by a few minutes. And I did it several times after that around the world in different countries and in different venues. And I increased my record to 1 hour and 44 minutes of being sealed up in a steel coffin underwater. Well, it's a matter of using some common sense to start with. You don't want to use up a lot of oxygen. I got a very good night's sleep. I did it on the Today Show on NBC with Dave Garroway, as a matter of fact, as the host at that time. That was many, many moons ago. And I rested up very thoroughly. I stayed at the Hotel Shelton, where there was a swimming pool in New York City. And I slept well. And I must say that when I got into the coffin there, I was starting to think, well, maybe I'll make an hour or so. I made an hour and 31 minutes in that particular episode. But I just breathed in a very shallow manner. I didn't take big, deep breaths to use a lot of oxygen, and I relaxed, and I had good assurance. I had headphones on, so I was listening to what was happening outside. They would consult with me every now and then. I had a microphone on my chest. And I just took it easy. I kept my metabolism rate way down. And at the end of an hour and 31 minutes, though, I was really doing this kind of a thing. I had to take every bit of oxygen I could possibly manage, because you are rebreathing the air. You see, you're not using all of the oxygen on every breath, of course. But it was tough. It was rather tough. I subsequently learned that I could do it, as I said, for an hour and 44 minutes the last time I did it.
It seems that you can do a lot of reading about writing. Any bookstore or library today offers a great selection of books on personality analysis through handwriting. Though psychometry may not be used in a serious commercial sense, evaluating personality and personal potential through handwriting is used. The use of graphology in business to assess people for purposes of employment is on the increase. In 1979, an estimated 85% of European firms used graphology for recruitment purposes, so that if you happen to apply to one of those firms, you might have been either selected or rejected by this process. Now, please welcome an expert graphologist, Mr. Duncan McIntosh. Duncan, thank you for coming tonight. In a few moments, you're going to demonstrate your expertise with the assistance of 5 volunteers. Now, graphologists often suggest that someone is in the wrong job based on an analysis of their handwriting.
40% of us are in the wrong job.
Now, normally you would be told by the company you're working for that they're looking for a particular person, a salesman, for example, and they'd ask you for an analysis of a handwriting sample. Is that right?
Right.
Well, tonight you've agreed to do this test with us. Earlier in the day, we gave you 5 examples of handwriting, each one from a different career, a career that you have designated as being suitable for this experiment. Well, we have a saleswoman, computer training officer, an artist, a secretary, and a farmer, and these 5 ladies are with us in the studio tonight. We've tried to avoid leaving any clues in the handwriting samples as to each person's career. Nevertheless, I understand that on the basis of graphological analysis, you've tried to allocate each sample to its author.
Right.
Now, the expected result by chance would be to get 1 out of the 5 correct, by chance alone, and there's a less than 1% chance of your getting all 5 correct. Let's start with sample A.
She is a person who is very adaptable. She can adapt herself anywhere, but at the same time, she's a little introverted. So I had a tussle whether it was the computer or the saleswoman, and I went for the saleswoman.
Thank you very much. Will Lady A please go to the sales ladies section? That would be the brush salesman right here, I believe. Now, what about number B here?
Yeah, that's a bit difficult one, because you see, here is somebody who feels that they have not used all their talents. The job she should be doing, whatever she's doing, and I put her as computers.
So you placed Lady B in the computer profession?
I did.
I'm going to ask Lady B to step over behind the computer. All right, and what about C?
She's one who likes plenty of space, doesn't like to be cooped up. She is up in the clouds a bit. She does a lot of thinking, and I'm going to say something particularly definite here, and she can tell me whether it's right or whether it's wrong. Do you have a scar in your abdomen?
Wrong.
No, you don't.
No scar on the abdomen. What profession did you allocate this
Well,
lady to?
I allocated her between the land and, in fact, the sales.
You chose this lady?
I chose the land, that's right.
All right, this lady will step around to where we find the tractor down in the end there, please. And what about sample D?
Well, in sample D, I decided that this was the artist because of the intuition, considerable intuition here, and one who, in fact, is very versatile in all aspects. There is a lightness and delicacy to the handwriting.
So this lady is the artist in your estimation. Very well.
Right.
Would you step over behind the palette and the brushes, please? And finally, I think I can guess which one this is.
Yes, it was here between the secretary and the computer, and I came for the secretary because home life was vital, and she's logical as well, and she can good with people.
See, well, we have not much choice for you, young lady. Would you step over behind the typewriter, please, because you apparently are supposed to be the secretary. Well, I'm going to ask each one of these ladies in turn. First of all, number 1, are you indeed a salesman? Vote with yes or no. You are not the salesperson. And number 2, are you a computer expert? You are not. Number 3, are you the artist? Ah, you are. And number 4, are you that secretary we're looking for? Apparently not. And number 5, are you a farmer? I see. Well, would you please move to the correct positions that you belong in, the 4 ladies that were not correct? Would you move to the correct positions? Now we know who is really in that profession. We expected that according to chance, Duncan, you would get 1 correct, and you got exactly 1 correct. Thank you very much, Duncan. We're very grateful for you coming along here this evening. Now, as we mentioned earlier, graphology is widely used on the continent, and its use is increasing here in Britain. But there seems to be quite a margin of error. How would you feel if your career depended on the analysis of your handwriting? We've heard many opinions, both for and against, in this vital area of dowsing for good and bad places to live and work. If life and death decisions are also to be based on the results of dowsing, surely we should try to establish once and for all whether it works reliably. Please welcome my final guest, Clive Thompson. Well, tell us, Clive, what do you do?
Well, at the moment I'm doing quite a lot of water divining, and I'm also helping out the Paris Mountain Mining Company in looking for the mineral ore band which goes around the mountain.
Well, tonight, Clive, you've agreed to attempt to find a piece of zinc ore like this one right over here, which is concealed under one of the 7 boxes that you see behind us. Is that correct?
Yes, that's quite correct.
All right, and you're happy to do it this way, are you?
I'm happy to do it this way. It's not normal. We work normally in the open, you know, on the mountainsides or wherever, looking for ore, but realizing you're doing a studio one, I'm willing to have a go and see if it works.
First, please show us the effect of your dowsing rod on this sample of zinc ore, and we'll just conceal the sample with a box so the conditions are exactly the same as when you come to do the test.
Righto, James. Now, to explain how the rod works, when you're facing the ore, I don't know if you can see this, but we put a white-ended tip there. It has a slight sideways move when you're there. Take it off, and it dies. See it die, comes in, and it dies again. So to amplify that, I give it a voluntary upward movement. So aim it at the ore, and what do you get? You get a large oval form, which is easy to distinguish. If I take it to the side, see it die? Now close my eyes, bring it in. I can feel it moving. Dead.
Well, that seems to be a very dramatic demonstration. Now, will you please try to locate the ore sample taken from the same piece of zinc ore which is hidden in one of the boxes behind us? Of course, if chance alone were operating here, you'd have a 1 in 7 chance of finding the sample at your first attempt. Using guesswork alone, we'd expect you to locate the zinc ore sample by your 3rd or 4th attempt. Good luck, Clive.
Thank you very much, James. Right, I'll take number 1 first. In the upward movement. There's no there. No. Come back to that. Try 4 again just to see. Well, James, we'll bank on 7, see if it's there.
On number 7. All right, let's take a look and see. Now, even I don't know underneath which box the zinc ore is, and I see that it's not here. Well, Clive, would you like to have a second try at it?
Let's try number 4 again.
Number 4.
No.
Well, it was wrong, so let's try another attempt, shall we?
Well, we'll try 2.
We'll try number 2.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look. Here we are at box number 2, the 3rd guess, and there we are. There's the piece of zinc. Zinc ore, pardon me. Well, Clive, would you join me here for a minute?
Yes, certainly.
We said that by chance you'd find it on your third or fourth attempt. You found it on the third attempt, so your results, sadly, seem to be no better than chance. But we'd like to thank you very much for coming tonight. Some psychics go so far as to offer help to the police. In order to see how useful this is, we prepared an experiment using this collection of instruments which might have been used to commit crimes, and then again, they might not. Is it possible for a psychic to read the history of an instrument just by touching? My final guest claims to be able to do this. Please welcome Nella Jones. Now, Nella, you regularly approach the police with information you believe you have about crimes. The test you and I have agreed upon involves a number of objects which you've never seen before. We're going to see what information you can get from them. Are these visual images, or do you get sort of an emotional impression, or what is it?
It's sometimes visual, sometimes it's as if it's an inner knowledge.
But one thing that bothers me now,
Yes.
Suppose you were to handle an item like this, couldn't you perhaps pick up vibrations from the person who sharpened the item, or who perhaps manufactured it, or the person who sold it, and perhaps give wrong information to the police that way?
The police don't often give me tools like this to handle, James. They come along and say, well, we've reached a dead end. Can you throw any light on it whatsoever? And I never say, yes, I'll come and solve the case. I say, I'll do my best.
We have here 6 different instruments or items or whatever, they all sealed up in plastic bags. Please unwrap them while I explain to the audience what they are. Any or all of these could have been connected with a serious crime involving a loss of life. The history of each object is known. They've been individually wrapped until now to avoid the possibility of psychic contamination. All right, which ones do you think are most likely, then? Let's put it that way.
Well, these 3, I felt, that's just a little thing. That's just I think. Could have been quite innocent, but getting into a lock of some sort. These 2, as I say, I felt glass with that one, as if it could have been used to... I feel glass. I just don't know. As I feel it, I'm just picking up glass. Not doing bad, are we? This one, God knows why, I'm picking up a heavy tyre, a heavy vehicle tyre. So I don't know what that's being used for. Sorry, my darling, best I can do.
Let's look at your results. I know you make no claims for accuracy, but it's still interesting that you examined 6 objects, you got no information from 3 of them, and you got incorrect information from the remaining 3. I wonder what the police would make of that.
James, you're trying to explain all that I do by logic.
Oh, no.
What I do is illogical.
It's been a most intriguing demonstration, and we'd like to thank you very much, Nella, for taking part. As Nella says, psychics often offer information to help the police with their investigations, and the police acknowledge this, although they say they never approach psychics themselves, and there are no official police psychics. Last August, New Scotland Yard set up a special review to investigate the use of information received from psychics. The police told us there is no recorded instance of psychics solving a criminal case or providing evidence or information which led directly to its solution. It's a very seductive idea. It would be wonderful to believe that everything from your bank balance to an international war was really influenced by the planets. My first guest is an astrologer whose work is read by millions of people in Britain every day. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jonathan Kaner. Tell me, Jonathan, who do you write for?
I write for Today newspaper in this country, Today newspaper, Woman magazine, Mirabella, and Living.
I have a question for you. You know, are we really supposed to believe that everything you write for, say, a Capricorn is going to happen to 1/12 of the total population of the world that next day?
Well, let me ask you something, James. You come from the other side of the Atlantic. Would you say that Canadians and Americans have different characteristics to each other?
Yes, they do.
So, up to a point, there are differences between Capricorns and Aquarians, and certain things I can say about them, but I would, as is obvious from what I've just asked you, say that there are also a lot of things you couldn't say just from that kind of information.
Well, how would you do a more accurate reading?
All right, well, for do that, you're going to need somebody's date of birth, their time of birth, and their place of birth. And then you're going to need to draw up a great big map of the sky, and by analysing where all the different planetary positions are, you can start to say something that makes a lot more personal sense.
So you say that a reading of this kind would be accurate and individual enough for the person to recognize themselves?
I would hope so.
All right. Well, Jonathan has kindly agreed to put his talents to the test this evening. We have taken the birth date information from every person in the audience tonight, and before the show, we gave you the details of one person selected from that audience. So please give us your reading for that person.
Okay. Well, I don't know who I'm addressing here, but I know that the person who owns the horoscope that I've been looking at has a very unusual horoscope. This horoscope is unusual, and it suggests to me that you are a very extrovert person, unusual, larger than life, full of confidence, with a very zany sense of humor, and generally a kind of way of being different, eccentric, controversial. You will kind of enjoy the limelight that comes from when it's revealed that it's you. You won't feel too shy or ashamed of it. And one more thing I should also say, there's something about you which is rather professorial and intellectual, and it makes me think that we're dealing with someone who's had a well-trained mind, is very speedy and alert and quick-witted.
So we're looking for someone who's controversial and professorial. Now, let's see if he or she agrees, but first, let's see by a show of hands in the audience here, how many people in the audience think this reading sounds like theirs? Let's see a show of hands. Well, we've got, what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, about 15, maybe a few more. Quite a few, actually. Now, let's meet our real subject of that reading. Please welcome Hugh Laurie. And Hugh is accompanied this evening by a gentleman he hardly knows, Stephen Fry. So tell us, Hugh, what did you make of that reading? Is it anything like you? I mean, does it apply to you?
I wouldn't say very much, no. I'm certainly not enjoying the limelight now. Although you may say, why did I come up? Well, curiosity, you know, but limelight, I wouldn't say, no. Extrovert, I don't think so. Professorial, I got the lowest possible degree at the university I went to.
Ah, but you did go to university.
Oh, that's right.
Well, that's a start.
Oh, that's
yeah. One for me.
You think you count that as one for you, do you?
Well, just a small one
you're
for me,
very
I
generous
think,
to yourself.
yeah.
I call that a draw, yeah, all right. What else was there?
Did I say you had a good sense of humor? I think I did.
Hands up in this audience who thinks they have not got a sense of humor.
Oh,
there you go. Everybody. It's one of the rules of the world that everybody believes themselves to have a great sense of humor.
I picked it out as being a strong point in a gentleman's horoscope.
It would have been a brilliant one of me, incidentally. That's the odd thing. People do regard me as professorial in some way or another. Hugh isn't at all. He's certainly not extrovert. And
stupid. Stupid, in fact.
I wouldn't get together, but not in the least bit stupid. Very intelligent, but not in a professorial or academic kind of way. And certainly not competent. In fact, I seem to spend a good 90% of my life trying to make you more competent. He gets nervous and he despises it.
I think you do your friend a grave injustice. I've looked at his horoscope and I'm sure he's capable of far more than that.
Yeah, but I've looked at him, you see.
Well, Jonathan, it doesn't seem that Hugh and Stephen are entirely convinced by your reading. And even more interesting, many people in our audience tonight thought that it could be them as well. What explanation could there be for that, do you think?
Oh, a very simple one, that of course what we're testing here is my ability to communicate, and of course you must understand in the newspapers I specialize in saying things that do apply to a lot of people at once.
Well, from my experience, readings in newspapers are very general, and perhaps that's why in America some of them now carry a health warning, which makes it clear they're for entertainment purposes only. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for taking part. Stephen, thank you. Crystals are becoming increasingly popular. The claims made about them include that they can heal, improve memory, give off energy, and help you assert yourself. Well, let's find out, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first guest, Britain's best-known crystal healer, Susie Holbich. Now, Susie, I understand that you believe crystals have considerable power.
I do. Yes, I do.
And you've agreed tonight to demonstrate crystal power through what is known as applied kinesiology.
That's right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, to assist with this demonstration, we have with us actress and journalist Fiona Richmond.
Tell me, Fiona, what about you? Do you believe in crystal power?
I don't really know very much about it, but I'm willing to have a go at anything that's going to help me.
Very good. Well, first, Susie is going to demonstrate the power of crystals by testing Fiona's strength while she's holding the crystal. This is applied kinesiology.
That's right, yes. You can test it for allergies and all sorts of things, muscle testing.
Well, earlier today, Susie decided this particular crystal that you're holding there is good for Fiona, right? Now, could you demonstrate for us, please, just how you decided that and do the little test?
Well, I went through crystals and the ones that I've got with me, and that seemed to be the right one. So first of all, I'd like to muscle test Fiona with her normal sort of strength. And to do this, I'll ask her to put her arm up, straight out.
Straight.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm going to just test it.
Okay.
You can feel it. I mean, there's no
it's just pushing down.
So
normally.
just hold that in the other hand.
Do I hold it tight?
Just hold it.
Okay.
Let your body attune to it for a moment or two.
Feels hard.
All right. And then put your arm up again.
Okay. Straight. Oh.
Yeah. No, can you feel the difference?
Absolutely,
I mean, I can feel it,
my
but you
arm's
can
quite
feel it.
rigid.
It's absolutely rigid, whereas before it was absolutely limp.
Extraordinary, yes. There's a huge difference.
Well, you're going to place this crystal inside this small red bag. All right, now this crystal has been placed in the pouch, and I'll hold it by the string. And we've also here other samples, which are all going to be mixed up, also concealed in pouches, none of which could be described as good for anyone. That is, the ones aside from the crystal. So using your method, Susie, can you now find, if I give them to Fiona one at a time, which is the good crystal?
Well, we hope so. We'll test it on Fiona.
All right. Take the first sample. I'll just take the first one. Oh, you're going to reach in and take one. I'm sorry. Anyone at all there.
Right.
Hold it in your hand.
Okay. And then put your arm out.
Okay.
I swear to you, this is totally spontaneous, because neither of us know what's in it.
You mustn't feel it to try to find out what's inside there, Fiona. You're just supposed to hold it lightly in your hand.
Right.
Is this good or bad, then?
Bad. It's
This
weak
one,
bad.
this one you say is bad, so we'll put it in the red section. Reach inside and take another one, if you would, please.
It's like a raffle.
It is indeed.
Okay.
Bad, yep.
You say that one's bad, then?
Another baddie.
All right, I'll take it only by the string there. Thank you very much. We'll put that one aside in the bad area. And we've got three left. Reach inside, please.
Okay.
I think that one looked bad to me, wasn't it?
Bad, it certainly was.
All right, very good.
Anything
No. Don't you dare peek. You're trying to peek, I know.
Yes.
Now we got two left. Let's see how you do on this one.
All right. That should be it.
That should be it? All right, I'll take that one. Now I'll put that one over here in the good area, and we have one left.
And this shouldn't work.
I'll bet I know what this one shouldn't do. Let's find out.
Okay.
And indeed, that one seems to be one of the bad ones, okay? Thank you very much. Now, I placed all four bad ones on the red section here and the good one on the green section. Let's just see how you did, shall we? If chance alone were operating here, you'd have a 1 in 5 chance of finding the crystal. We have a strange substance in here. Well, that's a blue lump of something or other. Let's just find out what we have in these other bags, shall we? This one here, which I can hardly get out of the bag because it's sticking in there. That's another piece of it. Ladies and gentlemen, and Susie and Fiona, what you chose as the crystal is actually rat poison. And I'm not going to test it out on a rat or on anybody else in this audience, and I'm certainly not going to try it myself. And by golly, I think we had, yes, here is the crystal, which a moment ago was represented as being bad for you, and of course the last sample, as we might expect, rat poison.
Right.
So,
all I can say is that rat poison must be good for Fiona.
Oh, God, I shall take some every day then.
And that before, the crystal was sort of naked, if you like, in your hand. It wasn't covered up. And I think that does have an effect.
All right. Now, these are the results of this experiment that you'd expect by chance, which would suggest either that applied kinesiology doesn't work, or crystals don't have the powers claimed for them, or both. Fiona and Susie, thank you very much for coming and taking part tonight. Currently one of Britain's most successful mediums, please welcome my next guest, Maureen Flynn.
evening, everybody. I hope to be able to make a link with someone here tonight and bring a loved one through from the world of spirit. I have been given the name of Taylor. Now, someone here tonight either is Mr. Taylor or the name of Taylor will have a close connection with you.
My mother's maiden name is Taylor.
Because you see, I have a gentleman here who links with that name very clearly, and he would have been quite elderly when he passed, and he passed with a heart condition, chest, lungs, heart condition, and he would have linked with your mum, and he came very clearly to bring his love to you. I feel he's your granddad. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And who's Jimmy? Do you know who Jimmy is?
Can't
Or
picture
James?
a Jimmy.
James? I'd love you to find Jimmy, James, because I feel that there's a link in the family there for that name. Hang on a minute. Do you know who Doris is?
No, I can't picture that either.
Okay. I know I made a mistake linking this gentleman with Doris, because he doesn't look a bit like a Doris, as I said. But I do know that I'm in the same area here. I have a lady, and I don't know whether I'm saying Doris, Dorothy, or Doreen, but the Dory bit is right. And I know that I'm in this area here. Can someone here take Doris? Can you place the... I want to say Dory, but I know it's a name
Doris,
like...
you're right.
Doris. And the young man who passed in some kind of crash, some kind of accident. Does that make sense to you?
We're on a programme and everybody wants the truth, so you've got to go a little further.
I'm terribly sorry. The name of John I want to give too. Does John make sense to you?
No, but I think you got him crossed with the last caller. It's James or Jimmy.
James, Jimmy. Please forgive me. I'll have to let you be the judge of whether that makes sense to you, because obviously when you're trying to put a lot in very quickly, then you do get these sort of links. But he passed very suddenly and very quickly. And it's funny because I could feel something over his face. I could feel something over his face. As if he would have had some kind of...
This is most unfortunate you picked me, actually, because I'm a slightly non-believer.
But does it make sense to you?
Yeah, it does make sense.
That's right. That's fine. Because I just felt... And he reached out his hand. He reached out his hand.
Yes, you've got my husband, so... but I'm really the wrong person for this programme.
Well, I'm terribly sorry. You should have told your husband that. Not me.
Oh, God. Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that obviously through all this he's been trying to reach you, and just to let you know that he's pleased you're here. But I hope that maybe his link with you will bring you some joy that he's here with you tonight, and a lot of love.
Well, I want us to look carefully at the connections that you say you made. Let's take a vote. First, how many people in our audience tonight can connect with the name Taylor? About 30%. And now, how many people can relate to the condition of the grandfather? About 55%. So to sum up, about a third connect with the name Taylor, and over half connect with the details of the grandfather. Well, that's very interesting. Maureen's statement seemed to be more general than each of you thought before we took the vote. Make of that what you will. Let's consider whether you might have forgotten other details which none of you picked up. Do people remember accurately what takes place in a reading? Well, we have with us tonight Mr. Rod Beale. Mr. Beale, you're a satisfied client of Maureen's, I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah.
She did a reading for you not too long ago, which I understand you think is a very good reading.
Yes, she did.
A few simple questions, if I may. First of all, how long did the thing last, first of all, the reading?
About half an hour.
About half an hour. How many names, pardon me, did she give you during that period of half an hour?
Probably half a dozen.
About half a dozen. And did they all hit?
Not everyone.
How many
but
did
they
would
had
you
a
say?
similar sounding, like Doreen, Maureen, that type of thing.
Well, you were kind enough to give us a tape recording of that reading done by Maureen Flynn for you. And for your information, during your reading, Maureen Flynn tried these names, and they are on the tape of the reading that you're referring to. Alan,
Alfred, Alice, Anne, Bill, Charlie, Colin, Connie, David, Derek, Eileen, Ellen, Flory, Frank, Fred, George, Jim, Joe, John, Karen, Catherine, Kevin, Lillian, Lisa, Liz, Lynn, Mark, Mary, May, Michael, Rob, Ron, Shirley, Sydney, Stanley, Sid, and Steve. That's 37 names, and she also asked you if you could connect with any name beginning with an N or an L, and you could not do so. Now, in the ones that were accepted, and you did accept 9 of the 37 that were given, these were some of the categories: a son, a lodger, a brother, a nephew, an adopted nephew, a grandfather, a fellow worker, a cousin, and the neighbor's dog. Now,
that's right out of context.
I'm sorry?
Right out of context.
We have a transcript of it right here, sir, and you may have that transcript to refer to it, and the names, I think, are outlined there, all 37 of them.
You can analyze anything. You can analyze Encyclopedia Britannica. Mr. Beale is here because he felt that what he actually got on that tape made sense to him, very much so.
Private sittings, one must also remember that a person just cannot, in the first sitting, be absolutely sure. If you're going to make a research of these things, there should be a number of sittings taken with the medium, and over a long period of time, checking the results.
Of course.
I've been a medium for 60 years, and I've always said, if I give a 70 or 80% perfect demonstration, I do very well.
Archdeacon Perry, is it? How do you do, sir? I wonder what your opinion of this whole thing is. Would you share it with us?
The veil between this world and the next is a very odd veil, and you can occasionally see through it. Not as often as mediums and psychics think, but it certainly can be seen through occasionally.
But I do think a lot of it comes down to probabilities. And here we see the obvious problem that we disagree about what it means. You gave a good example in that tape there with the 37 names. People remember the ones that make sense and they forget the ones that don't make sense. But we're all left with different opinions. Some people feel like I do, well, there are so many names, we could all connect up to it, it means nothing to me. Other people, when it touches something important to them and stirs emotions in them, they feel genuine emotions that we shouldn't just wash away and say are worthless. I would love to understand what's going on, but I'm afraid I don't.
Well, thank you all for your comments, and thank you very much, Maureen, for taking part. We visited the privately funded Metaphysical and Psychic Research Center in Berkshire, whose principal, Norman Knight, has been involved in psychic research for over 30 years.
The center was founded in 1973. It was founded because we found that there was a lot wanting as far as psychic and spiritual healing was concerned. And this is why we involved ourselves with research and investigation into this phenomenon. The ultimate goal, of course, is to bring some tangible substance to this intangible subject. Most of this equipment here came through times when I was in deep contemplation. This particular object is our table that we levitate, and it moves around the room, under certain circumstances, of course.
Where are we going?
There you go.
Yeah. And now, ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome my guest, Norman Knight. Norman, you brought along a very interesting piece of equipment here. You say it can be used as a lie detector, but further than that, you say it can also in some way detect thought.
That's completely true.
I see. Well, let's see how it works, shall we?
Surely. We have on the top here a dial which is recording microvolts. And at the moment, this particular person, my friend here, is producing 1 microvolt. During the course of thought transmission, this particular pointer moves across the dial. But I've got to set it first to his metabolism. Hopefully, what I want to try to prove is that thoughts can be transmitted from one person to another.
and detected by this machine.
And it's detected by this machine.
I see. Well, this machine has its own internal power supply, and it's connected to your colleague, Mr. Ron Turner. Are you connected, Ron?
I am, thank you.
I'm glad to know a man who feels well connected. Norman, would you please tune the machine for us now?
Surely. Right, we're somewhere near ready now.
So, Norman, I understand that this also involves your wife, Norma, who is in our audience. And I understand that Norma is going to send pleasant thoughts over to Ron, and that the machine will pick up the thoughts as Ron receives them. Is that correct?
That's correct, but I would say at this point it's not pleasant thoughts, it's healing thoughts.
Ah, I see. All right, I stand corrected. Now, Ron, how can we tell when you are receiving Norma's thoughts? How will that be evident?
It'll be evident because the dial will show a rise, and also there will be a rise in the sound.
I'll signal you like this. Okay, that's the official signal. And you will signal Norma to start sending thoughts. Okay, Norman?
That's quite all right, but one other thing. Before we do that, what I'd like other people to do is not think or try to send thoughts to the sitter here, if that is possible.
Okay.
Because they can interfere with the transmissions.
Very good.
Can I readjust? Because
I think you'd better, yes, if you want to.
Right.
All right, Norman, let's try it again. Now.
Stop.
Very good. Of course, it's possible that this happens through visual interaction between Ron and Norma, and in order to avoid such an accusation, we're going to seat Ron facing in the opposite direction. Ron, would you swivel around, please? And now I'll signal when Norma is to start sending her thoughts. I will give the same signal.
Count about 7.
Sometime within the next few seconds or so, and under these conditions, we'll see what happens, all right? All right, stop. Now let's give it a second try, if you will. You tuned properly there, Norman?
It's okay.
Okay. Sometime in the next few seconds or so, I will give the signal by holding my thumb up.
She's already started.
I can't stop it.
I guess we're having a hard time stopping it, Norman, or can you readjust it?
No. He's received it, you see, and it's in his energy form now.
Norma, will you stop? All right, sometime in the next little while, I'm going to give another signal.
It's beginning to slow.
No, it isn't.
Okay, Norma, would you stop the signal, please? Well, under these conditions, there doesn't seem to be a correlation that I can see. Perhaps Norma failed once and perhaps succeeded once, but I think it's very hard to tell. Sending thoughts with the box reacting, maybe it's been shown and maybe it hasn't. I can't make up my mind. Perhaps Ron was reacting to a visual signal rather than thought messages in the first part of the demonstration. Nevertheless, the box is very interesting. Norman, would you allow electrical engineer to take a look inside that box?
Most certainly not.
Well, that's a pity.
I would rather get it patented first.
Well, that's a pity. I'm sure our audience would like to know what's going on in there. However, I would like to thank all three of you, Norma, Ron Turner, Norman Knight, for giving us this demonstration tonight.
Have you ever had any paranormal experiences?
I have. One time my couch, I was sitting on it and I was watching TV and it moved 3 feet over.
Apparitions, they're either angels or demons.
You know, I don't. Myself, I don't.
Walk into my house, completely empty, no family around, and next thing you know, I'm passing my little brother's room. There's a little boy about, I would say maybe 5, 6 years old, sitting there looking out the window. And I sat there for about 2 seconds looking at him, and then I thought, well, it's my little brother. I didn't even think about it. As soon as I walked past him, I'm like, wait a second, there's nobody there.
For years, Dallas Patti has compiled ghost stories from the Central Valley of California. She has a number of tales to tell. Next, on Stories of the Supernatural.
I grew up in a haunted house where we heard footsteps walking on the floor, and doorknobs would turn and doors would open and then close. Blue lights danced across the living room and the dining room. And we had an electrician check the place, and he says, your wiring is just fine, but he says, you're known to have strange things happen in this house. I would just chalk it up to that. We've heard heavy breathing. So what we were experiencing, I can't tell you for sure what it was, but it was something of the paranormal. Ghost, apparition, energy. I'm not sure what it was, but it was definitely something, and it has me believing when I hear other stories, because I know what I've experienced personally. And I don't expect other people to necessarily believe me. I think you have to experience something before you can first believe in it.
True or false, real or imagination? Not everyone agrees with stories like this. Here's an opposing viewpoint.
Well, first of all, I don't see any evidence that there are such things as ghosts. If by ghosts you mean the remnants of an individual, a human being, or an animal perhaps, who once lived and has somehow left some sort of a shade behind. I've heard the word shade used as well. I don't see any evidence of that. Willing to be shown. I see lots of evidence, but it's not very convincing. And again, it doesn't have to be convincing to me. It just has to be definitive evidence. Evidence is what speaks, and I don't see any evidence for ghosts.
Well, through the years, I've noticed off and on, I will get an odd picture. In other words, something that appears on the picture that was not in my viewfinder when I snapped the picture. So I have started compiling a little album of these pictures that have shown up. And I was looking back over some that were taken years ago when I was just a kid, for instance. And it was taken at our old house, which, as I stated previously, is haunted. It still is today, as a matter of fact. And there's a picture of me out on the front lawn petting the dog, and that dog, incidentally, would not go into the back bedroom for anything. You could not bribe him. He would not go in there. He was terrified of it. But we were outside, and someone snapped a picture of us, and I happened to look up, and there you can see the roof of the house, and you can see the attic, and it looks like a mist coming out of the attic. And I thought, well, how neat. So I'm thinking that is, you know, perhaps our ghost, our spirit, is this mist that's hanging over the attic. Then I know I took another picture inside the house as we were going to be selling it shortly, and so I was just taking pictures in there. And I took a picture of my great-grandfather's old dresser, and in the mirror there is something very strange. Some lights it's kind of a zigzag. What it reminds me of, actually, if you've ever seen a missile being shot off from Vandenberg Air Force, and then it takes, you know, it makes these, what do I want to say, curlicues in the sky, and it reminds me of that, only these curlicues are in the mirror. Not a face, but more like a curlicue. And then I was out at this old cemetery, Lone Oak Cemetery. It's perhaps one of the oldest cemeteries here in Visalia, I should say Tulare County. It's outside of Visalia. And it started in the 1850s. It's very old. And I was snapping a picture, and when I got the picture back, and it was a cloudy day, I should point out to you, overcast, I was not shooting against the sun, so there's no way that light could have come in and caused this effect. But what it looks like is something, it looks like an apparition. There's a light standing between me and the two graves that I'm looking at, the Crowley graves. And it looks like a person standing. I mean, you can see from the top of the head down to the feet. So I find that one very fascinating. And I shared that with my doctor, and he says, look, that's a ghost, that's a ghost. And I says, why would you say that? You're a doctor, a man of science. Why would you think that's a ghost? And he says, just because science can't explain it yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I tend to agree with him. And I've taken other pictures in old buildings or even cemeteries. I took one at the Hadley Funeral Chapel because they were remodeling it. They were changing it into a bank. It's now Suncrest Bank here in Visalia. And I got 2 orbs in that. I was very thrilled to find that.
Well, let's talk about orbs, okay? One of the phenomena that people are producing as evidence, they believe, of ghosts or other beings of some kind is the orb phenomena.
This is essentially an artifact of the digital photographic process. Digital photography is not the only one, because fashion photographers have long been plagued by the fact that when they take pictures in rain or in snow, when snow is falling, that the little flakes of snow are illuminated by flash, and that's the way most of the orb pictures with digital cameras are taken too, usually with a flash, yet with a dark background. And what's happening is the camera focuses on the general scene, and the little bits of dust or of snowflakes or raindrops or insects, and insects are usually the cause of this sort of thing in a graveyard, are illuminated brightly by the flash, but completely out of focus. Therefore, they manifest themselves on the photograph as an orb. It looks like a sphere floating around. So it's an artifact of digital photography. We did it very easily in our library back at the James Randi Educational Foundation by simply scattering some confetti in the air while digital photographs were being snapped. And we got beautiful orbs, but we knew what they were caused by.
And my best one, or at least what I think is my best one, because I really cannot explain it whatsoever. This was out at Smith Mountain Cemetery, and I was taking a picture of a fairly recent grave. And when I got the pictures back, there's this green snake-like creature that is intertwined in the tombstone, and it just kind of comes up out of the tombstone. It's even got an eye. You can see the eye. What caused that, I have no idea. But it's my most fascinating of the pictures I've been compiling.
The problem with examining evidence of that sort is that you have to have some data about how the photograph was taken. Many of these snake-like things are often just camera jiggling that people don't know about. Many people don't know about the photographic process or the videotaping process. And they're confounded when they see something where a shutter is stuck open for a long exposure and the camera moves and you get jiggly marks and whatnot. So again, you'd have to have lots of data about how and where and when and by whom the photographs were taken. Photographs can be very deceptive. They can also provide very good evidence. Now you are looking at me and saying, oh boy, these people are pretty dense, eh? No, they're people just like you and me, except they don't really understand how the real world works. You guys understand much more, and I hope I do too, about how the real world works. You don't know how it works, but you understand more about how it works and how it can be made to work better. But I'm sure you're familiar with Lawrence Livermore Labs, not too far from here. Lawrence Livermore Labs has a bunch of physicists, all PhDs I'm sure, working there, and I got a call from one of them a couple of years back. Said, oh boy, you're $1 million prize. It's won. Gone. That's it. Say goodbye to it. I said, how come? Well, a physicist from Israel came over here and brought with him a fellow named Ronnie Marcus. Ronnie Marcus was doing the Uri Geller Act, bending spoons and reading the contents of sealed envelopes and good stuff like this, all stuff which has been in the magician's repertoire for generations now. And they said, we put him through a test, and he passed. He's the real thing, all right. This is what fooled him at Lawrence Livermore Labs. He asked them to get him a box of matches, just a box of, this hasn't got many matches left in it, 5 or 6 matches. Ordinary box of matches, and of course, being scientists, they examined it with laser beams, scanned it in infrared and ultraviolet, weighed it to the millionth of a gram, way, way down there, examined each one of the matches very carefully, photographed it, polarized light, the whole thing. Everything you can imagine. Complete analysis. Made sure there were no threads, wires, magnets, nothing unusual about it. Came from Morton's Steakhouse. They got it themselves from Morton's Steakhouse. This isn't the original box. That's a sacred element. They probably got it in a glass case with an arrow pointer. And they gave it to Ronnie Marcus, and he said, well, this is a proof of what we call in the trade psychokinesis, and this is what he did. Wait. Yeah, enough matches. You need a certain number of matches in there. It's not going to work very well. This is what he did. He placed it on the back of his hand like this, and he said to them, whoops, he said, watch. The box will actually begin to rise. Look at this. It's rising. It's actually rising on the back of the hand. And it rose up, and then he said, and then when I relax the psychic power, it sinks back down again. Now, I don't know how it was done. But I'm working on it. As a matter of fact, this little parlor trick is in a book called Martin Gardner's Encyclopedia of Impromptu Tricks. And Martin advertised that you can learn to do tricks like this. You don't have to paint your body red and run around naked with a lampshade on your head in order to be an attraction at the next party, you see. This is a lot simpler and cheaper and doesn't get your wife quite as angry at you at all. It's very simple. You simply squeeze some of the skin on the back of your hand into the box as you close the box, and you know, like this, and it rises straight up like that, and then it goes all the way down again. A miracle of a semi-religious nature. Isn't that wonderful? Souvenir for you. There you go. Oh, okay. Well, that fooled him at Lawrence Livermore. Oh, not all of them, no. A few of them were taken in by it. The rest of them said they just didn't care much. But they should care. A test of any specific claim is going to depend entirely upon that claim. If you say you can speak to dead people, I've got a whole load of questions I would like to ask certain dead people, answers to which I already have. And the dead people, since they're dead, I don't believe they've got the answers any longer. But if you want to call them up and ask them the questions and come up with the right answer, hey, you could win the $1 million. Many people say they can read minds, they can predict the future, they can interpret dreams and such. Well, it all depends on the specific claim they make. All they have to do is say what they can do, under what circumstances, with what accuracy. And some people have taken literally years. One fellow, a PhD in California, took 4.5 years to answer those 3 questions. And finally, when we got ready to enter into tests with him of remote viewing, as he called it, and he actually gave courses in this at the university in California, he suddenly changed his email address and his telephone number. We haven't been able to reach him since. Isn't that strange? I guess he doesn't need the $1 million. I'd like to say that there has been one particular difficult one, but no, they've all been so easy. They've been so easy because they're so transparent. I've been in this business for a long, long time, and I've seen everything. Recently, I got a nice contract to go to South Korea and do a TV series, which I did there, testing South Korean psychics, so-called. And they told me before I left, they said, oh, Mr. Randi, you've signed the contract now, so I guess we should tell you, we've got psychics in South Korea that you've never seen before. And I went off there with my assistant, and we looked at them and turned to one another and said, wait a minute, this is the same thing that's been going on since the 1600s. It's in all the books. It's exactly the same thing. They're serving kimchi at lunch instead of macaroni or whatever, but in any different culture, in any different, the costume is different, the language is different, but the same stunts are being done again and again and again. They haven't invented anything new since the early 1600s. Well, you'd have to ask a psychologist and perhaps a few psychiatrists that question, because technically I can't answer that question, but I will tell you, I suspect strongly that people need to have some more romance in their lives. After all, look at the average kid who is male or female who is raised by his parents to believe that he or she will have children, and you'll have a wife or a husband, and they'll be absolutely ideal people, and everything will go. You'll be a doctor or a lawyer, you'll be very wealthy, have a beautiful home. It doesn't work out that way all the time. In fact, it seldom works out that way. And so they look around and say, what have I done wrong? And if somebody runs an ad on television saying, oh, I can solve your problems, I can give you guidance to the future, and I can look into the crystal ball or read the tarot cards or whatever, they may tend to fall for that sort of thing because they say, they wouldn't say that if it weren't true. Oh, yes, they would. And there's a huge profit margin in this. So people do fall for these things very, very easily. Hello, I'm James Randi. Back in the 1980s, you may remember, one of the biggest woo-woo attractions was channeling. The notion that the luminiferous ether, or whatever, was stacked up with the souls of the departed who were still hanging around, eagerly waiting to be contacted by specialists with strange voices and affectations, but little talent outside of moaning and groaning. These channelers infested the TV studios, the assembly halls, and the churches of any country that could afford them. All over the USA, the UK, and most of Europe, local versions of this nonsense were suddenly on the scene, and the media, as usual, promoted them all because they were interesting, weird, and popular. Well, Australia was visited by one of these gurus who came and went in a spectacular style from which Down Under still hasn't quite recovered. In 1988, I was contacted by TV Channel 9 and asked for suggestions on what they might do to bring a certain degree of rationality back to their continent, where the moaners and groaners had begun to flourish like another infestation of rabbits. I opined that the best way of doing this was to demonstrate that we could literally create such a personality from scratch for the TV networks and newspapers to gobble up. A giant hoax using an inexperienced layperson and the same techniques that those rabbits were using, though less biologically direct, of course. I turned to my good friend, performance artist Jose Luis Alvarez, who at that time was not even aware that such spiritmongers were in existence, and thus a perfect subject for our project. He was exposed to a few hours of Jay-Z Night and Lazarus, among others, and he immediately fell into his own alter ego character, who we decided to name after Charlie, my rough and tough red cat, though we chose the Spanish version. Thus was reborn, Carlos, the 1,000-year-old spirit of a powerful guru who had kept company with several of Carlos Castaneda's creations in Latin America. The proper robes and amulets were selected. We needed Carlos to have the right vibrations, of course, and he always dressed in white. Come to think of it, he got to be a bit much when he was in his Carlos mode, and we couldn't wait for him to descend from heaven and down a beer with us mortals. Jose took on his friend George as a manager to the great Carlos. Both of them spoke Spanish, and we just hoped that Aussies would not detect a Bronx inflection when Carlos declared little-known truths of the universe to them. Channel 9 planned to present this item on the Down Under version of the 60 Minutes TV series, so they had a very satisfactory budget for the enterprise. Thus George was decked out in managerial finery, pinky ring and all, as befitted a companion who fronted for an ancient guru. A few rehearsals, and the pair was ready to take on Australia. While we were grooming the star, the Channel 9 folks were busy preparing the public for his arrival on their shores. They set up a modest office on a short lease from which to distribute pamphlets, press releases, and bulletins, and every woo-woo agent, radio show, and amateur channeler fan club lined up to get passes to everything that Carlos might do while on their continent. We turned out a booklet titled The Wisdom of Carlos, which I'd whipped into existence in about 20 minutes. It was about as vapid as anything turned out by real channelers, so it was immediately accepted. Now, we did not inform the Australian skeptics of our project. We knew that just one leak of the fact that Carlos was not a bona fide faker, you follow my meaning, I'm sure, would have brought down the whole hoax, which had to be developed fully before we triggered the demolition, an art in itself. Any casual mention in a barber shop or a hint to a secretary pool at the bank that the Carlos caper was a stunt could be fatal to our project, so we had to leave the local skeptical community out of it until the denouement. The only persons who knew were the Channel 9 personnel. They were directly involved, of course, and our good friend Dick Smith, who assisted us with connections and suggestions, and journalist Philip Adams, who couldn't wait to see Carlos released in all his glory. But why would Carlos be so easily accepted? You see, we had a rather cute gimmick. Carlos could stop his pulse by a simple means that got by the most astute observers, except for one member of the Australian skeptics, who easily solved it. But none of the media paid any attention to him, of course. The story was far too good to die. This was another of the summer camp style of stunts, like the Uri Geller's moving a directional compass. which I'll now show you. Watch this. Carlos had a ping pong ball concealed in his armpit, under his shirt, of course, and would stop his pulse by simply pressing his arm down against his side, then releasing the pressure to make it surge back. It's that simple, folks. Let's take a look at what was broadcast eventually in Australia.
His name is Carlos, and you've probably seen him on television or mentioned in the press. Carlos is involved in the mystical field of channeling. That's when an ancient spirit supposedly takes over someone's body so that he may then walk around a stage offering his teachings to true believers. Channeling, it's one of the fastest growing in a long list of spiritual faiths.
God bless you, Dr. People.
It's a variation on reincarnation.
All right, I'll say, how are you this day of your time as you create time to exist?
The idea is that an ancient spirit decides to show up in someone else's body.
Beloved masters, indeed.
To New Age believers, this is all perfectly reasonable, perfectly logical.
Earlier, I spoke with a channel by the name of Jose Alvarez, a 19-year-old artist who is about to visit Australia. His body is frequently taken over, he says, by a spirit called Carlos.
First comes Terry Willisey tonight, who, in good competitive spirit, conducts a satellite interview with Carlos before he even leaves the United States.
What do you say to the skeptics who believe it's just an act that you put on a performance?
I do not say anything to them. I let Carlos do that. He does it pretty good.
The primetime current affairs show screens their satellite interview, complete with a registered nurse they hire to check Alvarez's pulse.
Okay, it's gone.
I am Carlos.
Carlos has some other homegrown homilies.
Crystals are great sources of power.
This is all good New Age stuff. Reincarnation, spiritual healing, and the critical role of crystals.
The earth itself is a gigantic crystal. All life on earth derived from crystal power.
Admission to the Carlos performance was free, but later the audience was invited to shop at a supernatural supermarket. But what had drawn all these potential new followers? Well, Carlos had foreshadowed his visit to Australia, not through a sign from the heavens or a natural disaster, but through a good old-fashioned public relations campaign. This is how it was organised. First, the key Sydney media received this glossy public relations handout. Now, inside there's a book of Carlos's teachings, various glossy photographs of the chap and other paraphernalia. Also available is a specially produced sound cassette and, available on demand, a specially produced video.
This is Radio WOOP in New York, and Carlos.
This videotape shows a New York radio interview by Carlos and one of his Broadway appearances. It all helps paint him as a mystic media celebrity in the United States. What response does the publicity handout produce? Could I ask you how you knew that this was occurring here today?
On TWT. Through TWT, yeah.
You saw it on television?
Yeah, we did.
Can I say this to you? If we didn't want you to have the opportunity to explain yourself, we would not have invited you.
We got plenty of opportunity.
Well, why did you come in this morning other than for a little bit more publicity?
At the end of a lively interview, the Mystics manager, Jorge Grillet, pulls a stunt that gets all of Sydney talking. He douses the redoubtable Negus when things get too hot.
I mean, it's too much. Let's get out of here.
I think we've proved our point.
I think it speaks for itself.
This clip is shown and re-shown and makes newspaper headlines. Suddenly it seems the Sydney media is alive with water throwing and Carlos. The Mirror newspaper, Ray Martin's midday show,
George explained why he'd had to call Carlos back.
the Channel 9 News, all run with the story.
The event that I predicted will take place
Channelers in the United States generate tens of millions of dollars a year. They rely on a public all too easily fooled, but they also depend just as heavily on a media overeager for new sensation.
The major lesson to be learned from this hoax was that it was the media, not we, who actually created and nurtured the Carlos entity, from nothing but the acting talent of Jose Alvarez and some carefully designed coaching. He became a character who was accepted as a genuine, though transitory, phenomenon.
Calling all psychics, the Nightline interns are spreading the word. There's $1 million cash prize for anyone who can demonstrate supernatural powers. The man with the checkbook, a renowned magician and psychic debunker named Banachek.
Were you nervous that no one was going to show up?
I truly didn't think anybody would show up.
Banachek is clearly not psychic because several people did show up, including a medium, a tarot card reader, and a palm reader. But first, a little more on that money. It actually belongs to the James Randi Foundation. That's Banachek's boss, magician James Randi.
Right, I'm looking really hard.
To which hand?
This one.
No, actually, you're wrong.
Where did it go?
I have no idea where it went.
The amazing Randi has spent 30 years debunking psychic claims.
What would you say to your critics who say you just don't have an open mind?
Oh, I have an open mind, but not so open that my brains will fall out.
After confirming the money does in fact exist, we're ready to get started. Let's meet contestant number 1.
My name is Jesse Bravo, and I'm a stockbroker by day, but by night, I'm a psychic and I speak to dead people.
A psychic stockbroker? Well, he can't be much worse than the regular ones.
Unfortunately, not everyone's open to the idea. So as soon as you tell somebody you're a psychic, they have to make a decision. Are you completely crazy?
So are you crazy, Jesse?
I think we're all crazy.
Here are the rules for Jesse's test. 12 envelopes. Inside, photos of 11 random living people and one very famous dead person. To win, Jesse has to locate that dead person 9 out of 12 times.
Hi, Jesse. Like a game show. Go ahead. Thank you very much.
The odds of winning by luck are about 1 in a million, but Jesse, of course, isn't counting on luck.
What I tried to ask is, whoever is gone, will you please just show me which envelope they're sort of contained in?
You believe that's a dead person? Are you ready?
But the spirits didn't answer. Jesse's first pick was this girl, and she's very much alive.
That is a living person.
Attempt 2.
Are you ready? This one is a live person.
Strike 2. He was supposed to find Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley.
We know he's dead, right?
Absolutely. I'm considered very good at what I do, and boy, am I bombing.
Yep. You believe that this is a dead person?
I'm hoping so.
After another failure,
A live person.
A live person.
Internally, I was crumbling.
it's Jesse Bravo's last chance.
Wow, that was very direct. Well, that one very strongly, I'm guessing.
I'm trying different techniques.
Okay. This one is?
It's live.
Think?
Yeah.
You're right. It's live.
Jesse may have failed, but he says the problem wasn't with him, it was with the test itself.
Asking an envelope, an inanimate object, to answer a question, it's a really tough thing to do. Maybe there's other people that can do that. I'm not one of them, obviously.
Next up, 2 more contestants, a tarot card reader and a palm reader. Their tests require live subjects, 12 of them. We start by getting short, written biographies from each subject.
They cover things from like past tense, present tense, things that are going on in their life now, a little bit of their character, whether they're humorous or a serious type person.
Oh, and one other thing.
Why are they wearing oven mitts?
Like we want to hide rings, we want to hide calluses. There are so many things you can tell from fingernails and from the hands.
Now, contestant number 2.
I'm Paula Taylor, and I'm the psychic tarot card reader. I express my powers through the tarot card readings, and then I'm able to tell them about their lives.
Here are the rules for Paula's test. She'll be given the 12 biographies. Then she'll do a tarot card reading on each subject. To win, she has to match the person to the correct bio 9 out of 12 times.
How convinced are you that you're going to win $1 million?
I'm convinced. I have great confidence in my abilities.
I'd like you to have a seat, just walk around there.
Paula gets in the hot seat and starts her first reading.
So I see that you're a person that's ambitious. You're involved in your work situation. I feel like you could be making more money. Okay, I'm going to go with this one.
And this is your final answer?
Yes.
Paula's clearly gonna be a while. She has to do this 11 more times. So in the meantime, let's get started with contestant number 3.
My name is Georgia Jade. Palmistry is something that I first learned when I was 15. If you don't work in a creative field, you definitely think in a creative way.
Do you make your living as a psychic?
Yes, and I do actually do energy work and healing work, and I channel as well.
Channeling spirits?
I bring energy in, and from the angelic realms.
We have copies of the active palms right here.
Here are the rules for Georgia's test. She'll be given the same bios for the same 12 subjects, but she'll also be given 12 photocopies of their palms. To win, she has to match the palm print to the correct bio 9 out of 12 times.
This is not a lot of information to work from, to be honest, but we will work with what we have here. I'm looking at the headline on this one, which is curving down towards the lunar mount, and that would show a stronger imagination. I'm going to go with this guy because he's a filmmaker.
20 minutes of mixing and matching later, Georgia has chosen a palm print for each bio.
Okay.
Excellent. Can I get you all to stand, please?
It's her $1 million moment of truth.
I'm going to ask you to look at the bios that are on your sheets, please. If this is your bio, I want you to turn it towards the camera. Not yet. If it's not your bio, I want you to crumple it up. Now.
Crumpling. Everyone wrong.
Oh. No, you didn't get everyone. You got one right.
Whoa.
You got one right, but you did not get the $1 million.
No.
You weren't just a little off, you were very off.
Yeah.
But
that doesn't surprise me. To do palmistry and not touch the person's hand is straight away kind of ridiculous.
If it's not your bio, I would like you to crumple it up into a ball.
But what about Paula, our tarot card reader? She's just chosen the bio for the 12th and final subject. On Banachek's signal.
Now. It looks like you've got one right. I'm so sorry, you do not get the $1 million.
Okay. I didn't feel like the cards really helped because there was no interaction with the readings.
So this doesn't make you think twice as to whether or not you're psychic?
No. I still believe I'm psychic.
What do you make of that?
It's called, what's the term? Stubborn. I'm a bit of an amateur at shuffling cards. Ho, ho, ho. Okay. But when a deck is thoroughly mixed up, as this one is, many people think that there'll be a red, black, red, black, red, black. I'm not talking about suits now, just the color, you see. Red, black. But it doesn't happen that way. Just for an example here, we got 3 reds, and we don't need the joker in there. Yes. And we've got, there's another 3 reds. No, this is pretty good. The colors, I'm just looking at the colors now. The colors are pretty well mixed in here. Oh, there's another joker that we won't use in there. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is, first of all, we suspect that the colors would be pretty well sorted. They would alternated all the way through the deck. But I'm going to show you something rather remarkable. Here we have a well-shuffled deck, very well-shuffled deck. And I want you to come over here and just give me your hand, if you would be so kind. Step over and join me on the set. Okay? Now, just hold, no, like that, with the palm up, a little closer. I see you have a rich future. Yes, well, in any case, I want you to hold half of the cards for me, would you please? And I'll hold the other half. And I'm going to show you something rather remarkable. Look at this. I'm going to turn the back over. Watch this. One black card on the top, and then all the rest of them red, every last one. Wow. And, taking a look, hold those for me, please. Remember, one black card on the top just to disguise it, but in this case, each and every one of them black. Oh, well, I did it. First of all, my next book is to be called, this is a plug, A Magician in the Laboratory. And I'm working on that currently right now, and it's more or less autobiographical because so much of my life has been spent running around the world and sitting around in laboratories and watching, in many cases, watching scientists make total fools of themselves. But I forgive them for that. They're just not informed. I try to inform them and such. And I thought, well, hey, before I publish the book, I should really come out and say to people, yes, I'm gay. I've been gay all of my life. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. The point that I came out so late in life is only due to the fact that I never got around to it. All my friends and family have always known. All of my office people and such have always known about this. I've never made any refusal to discuss it. And if anyone has ever asked, I've said, quite frankly, yes, that's the situation. And for 25 years now, I've had a faithful companion. And we get along just fine. We're very attached to one another. I'm very happy in that relationship, and it doesn't enter into my work at all, though. The public reaction has been wonderful. I anticipated that it would be, frankly, but it's been much better than I even dreamed it could be. I'm still getting emails months after this happened. I'm still getting email from people who say, oh, I just found out about so-and-so and everything. Bang on, that's the way to go. And these are people who can or cannot be gay one way or the other. It doesn't make any difference. They all accept it. And a couple of sour grapes out there, but I can ignore them safely. But a very, very small minority. People have understood. And we are in an enlightened age. Now, when I was a teenager, that would have been the last thing I could possibly have done. I would have gotten stoned. I would get beaten up every day, I'm sure, by the kids at school. But not anymore. That day, I hope, is past. Yes, and not only that, in that respect, as a matter of fact, I've found one thing that I did not anticipate. I'm getting a lot of correspondence from young gay people who say that I've served as an example of how it can be done, and they've determined that they're going to do it too. And that's very encouraging. I think that that relieves them of a bit of a burden. You feel somewhat freed up. Now, I didn't notice the difference at all because I've been out all of my life, if anyone asked. That's all there is to it. And nobody ever, well, some people did ask or sort of hinted at it, and I would come out with it right away. I had no problem with that. I still have no problem with it whatsoever. Here I am. And people often say, oh, but you named your car Sophia after Sophia Loren, a little blue Miata, beautiful little jobby. And they said, well, you keep on talking about Sophia Loren. And I say, yes, you see, I'm gay, but I'm not blind, after all. You know, that is not oil of Olay that Sophia used.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, now this is something you probably don't know about paper napkins. This is very strange, and this is probably news to you. That was part of the trick. Spoil it. Now, when paper napkins come in a pile like this, see, in the box, they actually have gender. I know this is hard to believe, but there are a lot of things that I say that are very hard to believe. They actually have gender, and they're arranged in the box, boy, girl, which is the way it should be, in my estimation. Now, this one, oh, I didn't look. Let me see. Yeah, this is the girl, and her name is Anna. I happen to know that. Don't ask me how. And this is obviously the boy, yes. And his name is Abe. So when I put them together, what have I got? A banana. Isn't that awful? All right, now, you get a choice, young lady. Which one would you like? Would you like Abe or would you like Anna? You get. All right, I'll take Anna here. Now, Abe will go into my hand like this, you see, and so that light doesn't fall on it. See that? Open up your hand for me if you'd be so kind. Now, hold it like that and make sure the light doesn't fall on it. That's it. Very good. Hold your feet. That's very good. Now, I have this one. The funny thing is when they occur in the box together like that, whoops. Sure, not poking out. When they occur in the box together like that, you know, they get to know one another. I don't want to get into all the details. It's a sort of story. But the funny thing is, they want to get together again. See, after they've been separated. Open up your hand. You have the two of them. You've got three of them. They had children. You try this one. It's natural. No, it's only two. That's where it should be. Okay. America is a semi-religious nation. At this point, there's often applause. Yes. Thank you very much. Not always, but sometimes. Yes.
Strangely enough, there are two jagged boulders, which look really misplaced because everything is trees, and then all of a sudden you've got these stupid boulders sitting there.
And he could be found near
He's near the boulders.
Is he still with us?
Well, that was famous alleged psychic Sylvia Browne on the Montel Williams show in 2003, 4 months after Sean Hornbeck disappeared. She said that Sean Hornbeck was dead. She was wrong about that. She said a Hispanic man with dreadlocks had taken him. She was wrong. And she told Sean's grieving parents where to search for his body. She, of course, was wrong about that as well. As you know, Sean was found alive, not stuck between jagged boulders, but in an apartment in suburban St. Louis. Mr. Brown's, or I should say Ms. Brown's mistakes does not end there, and it doesn't surprise famed debunker of the paranormal, James Randi, who also runs an educational foundation. He joins us now. James, thanks for being with us. What is your opinion regarding what we just saw happen with Sylvia Browne on the Montel Williams show? Does it surprise you?
No, I'm not surprised at all, because all of these people who say that they can speak with the dead, all of them, including Sylvia Browne, of course, are like vultures. They sit in a tree and they wait for the grieving to come by. Grieving people who are vulnerable and really need some help and are naive enough to think that if she appears on Montel Williams wouldn't deceive us, of course. She must be the real thing, and that's not necessarily true. And they jump on these people and charge, as Sylvia does, $700 for a 20-minute reading over the telephone. Incredible, but they believe it.
Well, that's I talked to the Akers yesterday, and they told me that they were only allowed to speak with Sylvia Browne on the show, not before or after, and they were told after the show that if they wanted further communication with her, they would have to pay her going rate, which I thought was $700 for an hour, but you're saying $700 for 20 minutes, and that's a phone consultation. She denies that. Her manager told us she's never charged at all.
Well, I think that's a matter of her opinion against mine.
What do you think it is that makes people go back to a person like Sylvia Browne, even though she was wrong about this case and as we've shown earlier, wrong about a bunch of others?
Well, she'll be back on Montel Williams or Larry King or some other place again, and that adds to the illusion that she is dependable. Now, I have a collection, Anderson, of all kinds of tapes that have been made of the 20-minute session that she charges $700 for over the telephone, and invariably every one of the people who sent me those tapes wanted their money back and were totally dissatisfied with it. Most of the tape consists, first of all, of giving the names of these people's guardian angels. That's not what they're looking for. They're not looking for names of other beings that they were in other dimensions in previous ages, millions of years ago. No, they want information that they have questions, burning questions, to which they want answers. And that's not what she answers for them.
And you say that what a lot of these so-called psychics do are cold readings. What's that?
Well, a cold reading is a technique, a specific technique where you just throw out ideas and initials, things like there's something red connected with this. It's like a right color. It might be a roof of some kind, and the letter M, or maybe a double letter R, I'm not sure. But there's also something about late at night, and I smell gasoline or turpentine, something like that, and electricity is flowing. And they go on and on like this, and they'll fill a tape with this sort of nonsense, and afterwards, if the victims are gullible enough, what they'll do is they'll look back through the tape to find some sort of correlation with what she said.
So-called psychics will say, well, look, even though something can't be scientifically proven doesn't mean that it's not real or doesn't exist. Do you hold out the possibility that someone could have psychic powers?
Well, we've been offering at the James Randi Educational Foundation a $1 million prize now for many, many years. And Sylvia Browne agreed on international television that she would take the challenge. Then she announced immediately that she didn't know how to reach me. A psychic didn't know how to reach me? She can't use the telephone book? And then she said, after we told her how she could reach me, so she wasn't inconvenienced, of course, she then said that I'm not a godly man, so she wouldn't have anything to do with me. Now, wouldn't she want to take that $1 million, which she could earn inside of 50 minutes or so? We figured that's how long it would take to do a definitive test.
Well, we'll see if she responds now. James Randi, appreciate it. Thanks very much. And we should point out we invited Sylvia Browne to appear on this program. We keep the invitation open anytime she wants to come on and explain herself, explain why she said that Sean Hornby was dead. The incredible rescue of Ben Ownby and Sean Hornby has raised a lot of questions about missing kids and the people who take them. We'll look at that and more in a special hour. Taken, Children Lost and Found, starting 11 p.m. Eastern tonight.
Well, Sylvia Browne, the unsinkable Sylvia Browne, is foundering in the water. I think her ship is going under. And I couldn't have seen a better shipwreck in all of my long career as an investigator of so-called paranormal, occult, and supernatural claims. Sylvia Browne, I've been after for 20 years now. We used to have a little thing up on our Swift blog. We used to have a little thing up there, a little clock, showing how many years since Sylvia Browne had promised on the Larry King Show that she would do tests, definitive tests of her ability to talk to the dead.
Are you willing to take his test?
Yeah, whatever test it is.
But you'd be willing to do that, right?
Yes, I would be willing to do that.
Or asking for guesses to the
I don't want to even know the gender. I just want to know the name.
Okay, fine. That's fine. That's your choice.
I'll make it even easier for you.
Okay. Sylvia has agreed to your conditions.
Yes.
You and Sylvia will set this up. We'll use a website. We'll use my website. Sylvia Browne will take Randy up on the challenge. We'll let you know about the date and time and everything.
So, as I say, for 20 years now, I've been after Sylvia, and it looks as if she's rather getting her comeuppance right now. Amanda Berry is a name that you'll be familiar with, and that she certainly was familiar with, because during a session on the Montel Williams show years ago, remember him? He used to have integrity at one time, I believe, but that's quite a while ago. He sort of adopted Sylvia Browne, and he had her on his program regularly, once a week at least. The parents of Amanda Berry appeared on the Montel Williams show, and they were told by Sylvia, "Oh, I'm very sorry, but your daughter is dead." Sylvia said that she had been murdered.
Almost 9 years ago, Amanda Berry's mom went on the Montel Williams show, where resident psychic Sylvia Browne spoke of Amanda.
I don't think I'll ever see her again.
Yeah, in heaven, on the other side.
The WMMS morning show in Cleveland reenacted the transcript. The host read the part of the psychic.
I hate this when they're in water. She's not alive, honey.
Well, as most of us know, and I'm sure Sylvia is now aware, just recently, in that dreadful episode that American history will have a hard time living down, where 3 girls were found in this man's home, this man named Castro. Amanda Berry was one of them, alive and well. Her mother had died some years before that, in something like 2006, I think it was. Amanda Berry and the other 2 girls had been imprisoned at this man's home for almost 10 years, incommunicado, not in touch with the outside world at all. And Sylvia Browne had told that grieving mother, broke her down completely, that her daughter had been killed. Sylvia Browne is a monster. She invents things off the top of her head, very carelessly and callously. She doesn't care what effect her pronunciations have on the people that she's supposed to be serving. She gets now $800 for a 20-minute talk over the telephone with the fabulous Sylvia. Now, the James Randi Educational Foundation and myself, James Randi, have been after this woman, as I say, for over 20 years. And why hasn't somebody done something about it? Well, now Anderson Cooper has joined our ranks in that he has come out against Sylvia. He says she just has no integrity whatsoever, and that's absolutely true.
Strangely enough, there are 2 jagged boulders which look really misplaced because everything is trees, and then all of a sudden you've got these stupid boulders sitting there.
And he could be found near
He's near the boulders.
Is he still with us?
Well, that was famous alleged psychic Sylvia Browne on the Montel Williams show in 2003, 4 months after Sean Hornbeck disappeared. She said that Sean Hornbeck was dead. She was wrong about that. She said a Hispanic man with dreadlocks had taken him. She was wrong. And she told Sean's grieving parents where to search for his body. She, of course, was wrong about that as well. As you know, Sean was found alive, not stuck between jagged boulders, but in an apartment in suburban St. Louis.
She's a comic figure if you're not a believer in the supernatural. But Sylvia Brown needs to be put out of business permanently. I think that can happen. And I look forward to that day.
Hello and welcome once again to The Randi Show. I am Brian Thompson with the James Randi Educational Foundation, and with me as always is Mr. James Randi.
Good to see you, Brian, and let's move right into our topic, which I think you may find provocative. But then I'm known for introducing from time to time provocative subjects.
Oh, I'm all for something provocative, so lay it on me.
Okay, I came upon something rather peculiar the other day. I noticed the strangest things. So as you know, Brian, I tend to notice these things, and this will be a bit of a surprise to you, but this is from Publix supermarkets. Now, Publix, P-U-B-L-I-X, is very well known in Florida. I don't know about the rest of the United States, but I'm sure they're in other venues as well. Do you have any where you are, as a matter of fact? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but I know whenever I go to Atlanta, there's one basically every 4 or 5 feet.
Well, Publix is pervasive like that, yes, and provocative at the same time, because this is a brand of clear fiber supplement. Now, this is something I take medically. It's a fiber supplement. It's not one of those laxative things. This just does things for my various parts of my body. Let's not get into the details of it, but it's a very simple thing, and it's they say it's soluble. That's wrong. It's mixable. It's not a soluble substance at all. But it is very finely divided. What is it? It's actually, do they say what it is here? Well, it's sugar-free and flavor-free, taste-free, but it's not free when you buy it. No, the point is, this is the container. It says it's 8.6 ounces, and it's sold by weight. But this will be a bit of a revelation to you. Well, perhaps not. What they say that when it's manufactured, that it's rather bulked up, you see, because of the way it's produced, and so it takes a while to settle. I can't imagine that it takes this long to settle. Take a look at this. You see this green line that I put on here? That green line marks the level inside this bottle of the actual substance. The substance, when you take the lid off and you take the seal off, now mind you, it's opaque, you notice. It's white, opaque. It's not transparent. If this were transparent, they would never sell a container of it, because it's just below this little green mark that you see around here. This, I put a piece of tape on in order to mark it indelibly for you. This is the level of what's actually in this container. Now, that doesn't mean they're swindling us. If it's sold by the ounce, by weight and such, that's just fine. But I really think that's very seductive and deceptive on the part of the packagers. I think this should come to the attention of the FDA or somebody, if they had any personnel that would look after this sort of thing or have any interest in it whatsoever. But this is a deceptive feature. And I really think, I've written to Publix about it, and I get no response whatsoever. They just don't answer. They ignore it altogether. It gets filed in what they call the circular filing cabinet, the waste paper basket, I'm sure. But I think this is something that more people should pay a little bit of attention to. When you see an opaque container like this, wonder just how much of this, see, that could be this height right here very easily, and it would be quite adequate to contain the contents. It doesn't take that long for it to settle out. Maybe when it's manufactured, it's this full, but I'm sure that settles out rather quickly, and maybe just a quick like that on a table would settle it up.
You know, I always get a little bit annoyed whenever I open a bag of potato chips and it's half empty. And then later on, I'm grateful for it because I would eat the whole thing. Well, I'm sure over the years you've dealt with a lot of manufacturers of pseudoscientific bunk, like, you know, homeopathic remedies and things like that. Oh, and they seem to always sort of skirt the line between lying and deceiving in their packaging. So what can you say about the way that, you know, regulatory bodies like the FDA and the FTC deal with deception versus outright lying?
Well, I've been preparing the text for A Magician in the Laboratory, as you know, rather frantically. I'm coming along very well with it, thank you. And the book should go to the publishers, I think, within the next 60 days. But I find out that the FDA just doesn't have the staff. They don't have people there who can look after this kind of thing. They have no interest in it whatsoever because they're swamped. Now, this is not unlike some other government agencies as well, but I would think that the FDA might get some sort of priority treatment. I think the FDA needs to look into these things as they need to look into homeopathic remedies, so-called. I use that word in quotations all the time, of course. I think they need some additional help. They need someone to supervise what they're doing and provide them with adequate personnel. They just don't have it. The same with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in Washington. They don't have enough people either. So they're issuing patents on perpetual motion machines and free energy machines left and right because they just don't have the staff to filter these things out. Now, you would think that perpetual motion machines, as an automatic classification, would be classified as fake, don't work. They simply cannot work. The laws of physics won't allow them to work. But the deluded out there, the great deluded inventors who sell these things all the time, and they sell stock in them, and some of them get very, very wealthy, like the Stern Company, S-T-E-O-R-N company, and I think that's Denmark, or is it Sweden? I think Sweden. They have been selling this device for the longest time and promising demonstrations of it. And I've watched the demonstrations on TV, and the wheel turns around like crazy, and then they got to capture it, and it stops. So they look and they say, "Oh, what happened?" It stopped, Dumbo, because this sort of thing will not work. But they seem to think that it will work, and they promise demonstrations. They go, "Oh, well, tune in 48 hours. We'll have it working." Duh. This is something that they can get away with because there just aren't enough folks out there to monitor this kind of thing and relieve people of their delusions that are perhaps even shared by the inventors.
So I guess the lesson here is for everybody, before you buy anything, do your research, make sure it works, make sure it's not woo, and also make sure that that package is full. I guess the only way to do that, though, is to open things up in the store and peek inside.
Exactly.
Line featured the world-famous magician, the amazing Randi. Well, we invited him back tonight for a very special reason. Here he is, the amazing Randi. You have been touring our country performing as a magician, but you have also been debunking psychics, haven't you?
I have indeed.
Would you explain to our audience why you devote so much time to this crusade of yours?
Well, I'll tell you, Bob, I feel it's a very serious matter to be particularly raising a younger generation who are being led to believe by some incompetent and not very bright, in some cases, magicians and scientists at the same time, that there are such things as psychic powers. I've looked for it for a long time now, and I have not found anything in 35 years. And I think that particularly a younger generation being told that these things are real will not be raised in such a way that they can deal with a rational, logical, real world.
And you have offered $10,000 to anyone who can perform a psychic feat.
I have indeed, and I carry the check with me.
I hope you have the check with you tonight, because we have a young man who claims to be able to move objects with his mind. What I would like to have you do is to go backstage and watch carefully as I ask this young man to demonstrate his psychic powers.
Very well, I will.
Make yourself comfortable in front of a monitor. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet a very interesting young man. He is only 21 years old. He's from Salt Lake City, and he's the founder of the Institute of Shaolin Gung Fu, and the subject of much controversy. Welcome, James Heydrich. Welcome to That's My Line. All of us are very pleased, not just pleased, but excited to have you with us. Now, you claim to have psychic powers, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Is this something that you have discovered recently, or have you known of it since childhood? How did it all begin?
Well, everyone's born with it. It's just a matter of development.
How did you develop your psychic power?
Well, through background and through training from an old Chinese master.
What sort of training?
Martial arts, kung fu, and laws of nature.
Well, what was necessary to develop the psychic power? What did this martial arts training do for you, I mean?
Well, it teaches you to recognize yourself, inner and outer self, to reach the fourth level of consciousness, matching the absence of the mind to the motions of the body.
And you say that we all have this power?
Everyone has it.
And each of us could develop it?
Absolutely.
Now, you are going to demonstrate this psychic power on That's My Line.
Yes.
What are you going to do, James?
I'm going to move a pencil for you.
With just psychic powers?
Just psychic powers.
Very well. Here's a pencil, James. Show us. James, that pencil definitely moved. Now, is it true that you can also turn the pages of this telephone directory?
Yes, it is.
And you will do that for us?
I'll try.
Should I take the pencil off the table?
Yes.
All right. There you are, James.
You would like to open it to any page, or should you want me to do it?
I'll be happy to.
Okay, let's get it. I'll get it. Ready?
All right. James, you turned the page of the telephone directory. Now, these demonstrations, you did these same demonstrations on That's Incredible.
Yes, I did.
And as you know, the amazing Randi maintains that you did not use psychic power, but that it was trickery. And he is prepared to pay you $10,000 if you can do it using psychic power. Later in our show, you two will meet head to head, and we will test your psychic powers to the nth degree. And I know that you at home are not going to want to miss that. Once again, here is the man who claims to have psychic powers, James Heydrich. James, welcome back to our stage. You did a most impressive demonstration earlier in our show. If you saw it, I'm sure you were impressed. If you did not, let me explain that James moved a pencil without touching it, and James turned the page of a telephone directory without touching it. And you claim to have done that with psychic power.
Yes.
Now, you're prepared to demonstrate your psychic powers again. You've warmed up. You're ready to go, are you, James? Very well. Let's welcome back a man who has made a name for himself as a master trickster and the author of Flim Flam, the amazing Randi. Welcome back. James, Randi. Now, you saw James' demonstration from backstage.
Yes, I did.
And do you accept that as a demonstration of psychic power, or do you believe that he used trickery?
I don't accept it as a demonstration of psychic power, Bob. I think that the solution is rather simple. I think that Mr. Heydrich is merely, to accomplish this effect, blowing on both the page and on the pencil.
I see. Now, you originally asked him to demonstrate in two different ways his psychic power, but as I understand it, you are now prepared to waive the demonstration with the pencil.
Yes, and the reason is rather simple, because the pencil reacts to even the currents of the air conditioning in this studio. It will be very difficult to try to put controls on it in such a way that normal currents of air that are present all the time would not move the pencil. For example, it moves very, very easily.
All right, you're not going to ask him to do that. That's one down, one to go, James. You are prepared to pay him $10,000 if he can turn the page of the telephone directory with certain controls. Is
That's
that right? You have the $10,000, do you, Randy?
I do indeed. It's right here. I've carried this check now for going on 17 years, Bob. There it is, a check for $10,000 awardable to the gentleman should he be able to successfully perform the demonstration.
I would like to introduce our panel of judges. And our first judge here, Dr. John Palmer, is a psychologist and professor of parapsychology at John F. Kennedy University. The seat right there, Dr. Palmer. We have Dr. Stephen Drake, astronomer and expert on stellar evolution at UCLA. And our third judge is Dr. Ronald Markman, assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at USC.
Since my theory, as yet unproven, of course, is that it's accomplished simply by blowing, though rather cleverly, I must admit, done, there should be a way, a simple way, without a lot of instrumentation, to demonstrate that fact by using one very simple control.
Now, let me just emphasize that this one control will not stop him from turning the page of the telephone directory.
That's right.
But you hope to the judge's satisfaction will demonstrate that he is doing it with his breath.
That's correct.
All right.
Now what I have here is particles of a white plastic, which when given a good puff, good heavy puff of air, will, I think, rather conclusively show whether or not blowing is the method accomplished. Now it will not perhaps in some way differentiate between genuine psychic power and actual blowing, but it certainly should be very interesting indeed to see what now occurs.
Well, do you maintain that if the page of the telephone directory turns, that we will see movement in the styrofoam as well?
I think that it's pretty logical. We've experimented with it, Bob, and that's what we have determined in the experiments.
Very well. Are you ready to proceed?
I am indeed.
Judges, you're ready? James?
Ready.
times am I going to have to do this? Once?
This time? How many pages?
More. Just one page, once.
This time and once more.
Now, James, you had another question.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What would you like to ask?
Okay. The styrofoam and the lights form electricity which pulls the page. Look. It pulls the page down instead of freeing the pages.
All right. And what would you like to ask us to ask Randy to allow you to do or for me to do?
To either take something else, either lighter or something that is going to that isn't going to form like static electricity.
You mean put something else, some other material around here?
Something that is not foam. Foam causes static electricity, and the lights is what heats it up.
All right, Randy, is there anything else that you can put around the telephone directory?
I've heard the question, but the question is not valid because it's making an assumption which is not true. The foam does not in any way create static electricity, and Mr. Heydrich, in demonstrating that the pages were clinging together, didn't demonstrate it to my satisfaction. I think we could perhaps ask the judges for their opinion on that. I am not a scientist, so I'm not qualified to declare on it.
Judges?
Whatever static electricity exists in the styrofoam would not really affect the movement of the page or the clinging of the pages together, in my opinion.
I would add that if this is in fact psychic functioning, I don't really see why that would make a difference.
Very well. Randy, would you allow me to turn perhaps half a dozen pages and then put them back?
Oh, yes, you may do that, please.
James? I'll just lift up 1, 2.
Lift them in a bunch, if you would, Bob. Just take about 1/4 of an inch of them.
All right, there, like that?
That's fine. Gently, place them down gently so it doesn't disturb the foam. I know, I thought you
wanted the other way?
Yeah, the other way. That's what I thought you meant.
Would that
sure
be helpful to you?
The static is going to still be here because of the foam. See, that's
well,
what I'm
it is
saying.
the opinion of the judges that there is not enough static formed by the foam to be a problem. So, under the conditions agreed upon, it would seem that now you should at least try with psychic power to turn the page of the telephone directory, James.
Okay.
It's not going to turn for you?
No, it isn't.
Well, have you reached the point then when at which we can declare the demonstration terminated?
This isn't a magician's trick. I can't just come up, bang, bang, and it's over. I have to be to where I can work with something small and then big, to build up my own self. So this is, it isn't a trick. It has to be done. This is just, it's power. It's mental power.
The conditions agreed upon have been fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, we can't change the conditions now in midstream. So, in the opinion of our judges here, you have not seen a demonstration of psychic power, have you?
Yes, that's correct.
You have not. And, Randy, obviously, James has not won the $10,000 with this demonstration.
So it seems.
Now, you have heard what James's explanation is. Do you have any comment to make on that?
Bob, the comment very briefly is that I have gone through many hundreds of these tests with many hundreds of people who claim to have psychic powers. And quite frankly, it's more or less the same story every time. When a simple, direct, very uncomplicated protocol is used and the control is applied, the psychic forces don't seem to be present, if indeed they are ever present at all. I still look for some sort of evidence of psychic powers. To date, I have not found any. Up to this very moment, I am still totally unconvinced.
Judges, do you have any further comment to make? You agree that you have not seen a psychic demonstration?
Yes, I would agree that I have not seen a psychic demonstration. I would like to say that as a parapsychologist, I believe that there are other evidence under controlled conditions that do demonstrate, I would think, to a reasonable person that psychic phenomena do exist,
yes.
But obviously not in this demonstration.
I want to thank you very much. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, James Heydrich.
The
before I say goodbye to you, Randy, I do indeed appreciate the fact that you joined us on That's My Line, Dr. Palmer, Dr. Drake, Dr. Markman. Thank you so much. Thank you, Randy.
During the 1980s, I entered a world that I found filled with fantasy and rife with abuse, the world of faith healing. I developed a special interest in a television evangelist named Peter Popoff.
And God told me, he said, you smite that cancer with your fist.
At the time, Popoff was pulling in nearly $4 million a year, healing people on his miracle crusades.
You've got cancer of the stomach? Are you ready for God to burn that cancer out? Here it goes in the mighty... Devil, back off. Back off, devil! Woo. Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
You really believe you're healed?
Yes.
You think your cancers are gone now?
Yes, I believe that because God never lies and we stand in His word. Praise the Lord.
I tell you, from now on, you're going to have a song of victory in your heart. Amen.
To his followers, Popoff seemed to have divine powers.
Alice, is it Gould? Alice Gould?
He knew their names,
Stand up, Alice.
as well as the afflictions they'd come to cure.
God is touching that thyroid condition right now. God is touching your nerves right now. God is touching your eyes. Just lift up your hands, get ready. Here it comes.
He also knew the personal details of their lives.
Hear good news from Charles before everything is over. I'll tell you, he's going to be completely delivered because of your prayers, because of your faith. Here it comes, complete healing in Jesus' mighty name, right now, right now, right now. Amen. It's all right to praise the Lord.
I suspected that Popoff's revelations were other than divine. The radio scanner we brought to the hall picked up a decidedly worldly source.
Hello, Petey. Can you hear me? If you can't, you're in trouble.
Popoff was being prompted by his wife through a wireless earpiece.
John?
Dearie Johnson.
She'd gotten her information from prayer cards filled out by the faithful before the show began.
She wants to get rid of the walker.
You want to get rid of this walker, sister? Oh, glory. How long have you been walking on that walker?
About 3 years.
3 years.
She lives at 1627 10th Street.
1627 10th Street? Is that right?
That's right.
She has arthritis all over.
Burning this arthritis right out of your body. Take a few steps just to make the devil mad. Hallelujah. That's it. Just move around a little bit. There she goes. Just walk with me. Oh, glory to God. She's not going to need that walker anymore. God's just putting new strength, new health, burning that arthritis out of her body. Just keep going. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I was able to arrange for another broadcast of the Miracle Crusade on The Tonight Show, but this time the wireless prompting was included. In 1987, Peter Popoff declared bankruptcy.
Greater is He! Greater is He!
The laying on of hands takes on new meaning in the Philippines, where psychic surgeons perform miraculous operations without knives. I investigated this phenomenon, then went on The Tonight Show to demonstrate what I'd learned.
Believe me, what you're seeing is strictly special effects. It's sleight of hand and nothing more. And this is the way it looks.
A little animal blood and a few chicken parts complete the illusion.
A bonus. That's a bit better. Just a second. Just 1 second now.
Maybe better for you.
You don't feel any better? Oh, no, that doesn't come out.
Could you tell us about your investigation of Peter Popoff?
Peter Popoff. There's a name to conjure with, to say the least. Yes, Peter Popoff. We went to investigate him. Steve Shaw, one of the Alpha kids, was with us at the time. That was I believe, in San Francisco, if I remember correctly. Vast auditorium, monstrous auditorium, and he had the place had just jammed to the roof, and there were people waiting outside in the street. These people make money, and they attract a lot of attention. And Popoff was marching up and down and screeching in his inimitable fashion, and striking people on the forehead and whatnot. And I would be recognized, of course, so I stayed well backstage, and I sent Steve Shaw out there, and he walked around with a microphone. It wasn't connected, but he walked around with a microphone and appeared to be interviewing these people and getting close to Popoff. And at a certain point, he came rushing backstage, and he said, "Popoff's wearing a hearing aid." Now, this is a kind of hearing aid that's right in your ear canal, and it's not fed with wires. There are no wires. It's fed by an induction coil around the neck. So you see no connecting wires at all. And it has its own little battery in it and a receiver at the belt. And as we said afterward, it seemed incredible that Peter Popoff, who heals the deaf, requires a hearing aid. So we knew what our approach would be from then on. I asked a gentleman, Alec Jason, a friend of mine, who's a private investigator and electronics expert as well. I asked him to attend the second night of the Popoff crusade at the same auditorium. And this went on for like 4 or 5 days at this auditorium. So he went in there, and his technique was to festoon himself with identification cards. And when the guards saw him coming, they just went, "Hey, go, 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 go." Because they didn't want to read all of these cards, but he had his face on every one of them. As a private investigator, he had access to that sort of thing. And he had that tool bag with him, and electrical tools apparently, and voltmeters and various other things like this. And he had a Walkman. Now that Walkman was not a Walkman. He was actually receiving radio images from around the place. And he went earlier, well before the Popoff program started, and he recorded all of the frequencies that were used. Now, the cash register system, the intercoms of all kinds in the building and such use different frequencies. Right. He recorded each and every one of those frequencies. And then when the Popoff thing started, he simply went down the list of frequencies and found one, 37.4, I forgot what it was, frequency that had not been used until Popoff got there. Pardon me, edit. And on the basis of picking up this spurious frequency, he tuned in on it, recorded it. And of course it was Popoff's wife. "Hello, PD, this is your wife speaking. Can you hear me? If you can't, you're in deep trouble." The first woman is the, yes, I'll use the expression, the big black nigger in the back. This was their disrespect that these people had for their victims, from whom they were taking money. "And you keep your hands off those tits, Peter. I'm watching you." We've got that on tape. Believe it or not. This is the disrespect that Mrs. Popoff and Peter Popoff had for these people. And a gentleman with testicular cancer, a man the size of a melon, a huge tumor that he had, and the women in the control room with Popoff broadcasting to were laughing hysterically. "Look at those balls! Wow! That's a record! This is a man dying of testicular cancer in front of them. They're taking his money and his emotional security and such, and they're laughing at him." That's the kind of people these are, friends. I'm sorry to be so frank with you, but this is what we have. And this is the kind of, this is the reason that I have to be offended by these people and to fight them tooth and nail.
That's very disturbing, actually. It
is
awful.
Absolutely. Well, as Johnny Carson said on the program that I played you an excerpt of it the other night. See, what I didn't tell the audience was what Carson actually said. There was a point in the broadcast where you hear the audience laugh, and that's all toned down in the editing. But Carson had not been told about what the solution was to how Popoff was operating. He admitted to me in advance of the program before we went on the air that he was quite puzzled by it. How does Popoff know all these things, you see? And he was knowing them through the earpiece that he had in his ear. And when it was revealed during the program that Popoff had his wife speaking to him, Carson said, "Oh, shit!" And then he straightened up in the chair and he did this to the audience to keep them quiet, you see. And they hushed down after initial laughter. But that was edited out of the sound afterwards before the program was broadcast. And he apologized profusely to the audience afterwards. But that was his immediate reaction. It was a genuine, natural reaction. So these things happen. I mean, editing like that is not improper.
No,
I don't
agree.
think.
I agree.
Certainly. I didn't want to embarrass Carson. He didn't want to embarrass himself and his audience.
I mean, but possibly even more disturbing than that is the fact that, as you were saying the other night, Popoff is now there raking the cash in again.
Yeah. He made, last year, the actual bookkeeping records show, he made $10 million more than in the year that he was exposed by Carson. So people don't learn. They will not listen. They don't get the message at all.
Same kind of theme, I guess. I mean, you also showed us the clip of you doing the sleight of hand that underlies psychic surgery.
Oh, yes.
And again, that was broadcast on national television. I show that clip to my students every year, and it's a very, very effective demonstration.
Yes.
But the problem again was that you said that having got on TV, the reaction from the public was to try and find out where they could have it done.
Yes. All these calls, a couple of hundred calls came in saying, how do we contact the psychic surgeons in the Philippines? Not one of them said anything about how instructive this show was, or how revealing it was, or thank you. Or they all just wanted to know how to spend their money and lose their lives. How can I die by that same means? Please inform me.
And so, I mean, I guess that raises the big question. I mean, can skeptics achieve any kind of lasting victories in these kinds of areas?
Well, Chris, I'm encouraged. Yes, I think we can. I'm encouraged by the fact that 2 to 4 times a week, via postal mail or email or fax or any of various means, I get a communication which usually starts out, "Mr. Randi, at one time I was very much opposed to you and I thought you were a dreadful man, but then I looked into it," and it goes on from there. And it may also start out as something like that. "Thank you for having made a substantial change in my life. I now have a different attitude." And many of those will have phrases in later on. "Mind you, I'm not convinced of your stance on such and such." All I want, my goal with this whole campaign, is just to get people thinking. Have them ask questions. Have them think about what I have told them. Don't believe me any more than you believe these other people who make these claims. I'm making a claim too. It may or may not be true. Investigate it. Think about it. And think about it sensibly and rationally, and think about it long, and make a decision based on that. That's all I ask. And people do. We've got a raft of letters like that from usually young people, which pleases me no end. That's where you have to get them, of course.
Exactly. I mean, as I use a lot of your material in my teaching, and the bottom line is just think for yourselves, question everything.
Yes.
Question what I'm telling you, look at the evidence, and just, it's basically about trying to teach people how to think.
Yes.
And I mean, the material that you provided is pure gold. So thank you.
And
for
go
that.
to authorities too. You say think for yourself. Yes, of course, think for yourself, but think and go to authority on this thing. And the kind of authority may not be the local psychologist down the street, because I've known all kinds of scientists, as we know, of course, who have believed in this sort of thing, because they simply can't believe they're wrong, and they're out of their expertise.
Yeah.
And a psychologist is not going to know conjuring techniques necessarily, but may. It's a matter of expertise. Good morning. Happy to see so many fine folks out here and so many smiling faces. I have a very peculiar background, attitude, and approach to the real world because I am a conjurer. Now, I prefer that term over magician because if I were a magician, that would mean that I use spells and incantations and weird gestures in order to accomplish real magic. No, I don't do that. I'm a conjurer who is someone who pretends to be a real magician. Now, how do we go about that sort of thing? We depend on the fact that audiences such as yourselves will make assumptions. For example, when I walked up here and I took the microphone from the stand and switched it on, you assumed this was a microphone, which it is not. As a matter of fact, this is something that about half of you, more than half of you, will not be familiar with. It's a beard trimmer, you see, and makes a very bad microphone. I've tried it many times. The other assumption that you made, and this little lesson is to show you that you will make assumptions, not only that you can, but that you will when they are properly suggested to you. You believe I'm looking at you. Wrong. I'm not looking at you. I can't see you. I know you're out there. They told me backstage that it's a full house and such. I know you're there because I can hear you, but I can't see you because I normally wear glasses. These are not glasses. These are empty frames. Quite empty frames. Now, why would a grown man appear before you wearing empty frames on his face? To fool you, ladies and gentlemen, to deceive you, to show that you, too, can make assumptions. Don't you ever forget that. Now, I have to do something, first of all, switch to real glasses so I can actually see you, which would probably be a convenience. I don't know. I haven't had a good look. Well, it's not that great a convenience. I have to do something now which seems a little bit strange for a magician, but I'm going to take some medication. This is a full bottle of Calms Forte. I'll explain that in just a moment. Ignore the instructions. That's what the government has to put in there to confuse you, I'm sure. I will take enough of these. Indeed, the whole container. $32 capsules of Calms Forte. Now that I've done that, I'll explain it in a moment. I must tell you that I am an actor. I'm an actor who plays a specific part. I play the part of a magician, a wizard, if you will, a real wizard. If someone were to appear on this stage in front of you and actually claim to be an ancient prince of Denmark named Hamlet, you would be insulted, and rightly so. Why would a man assume that you would believe something bizarre like this? But there exists out there a very large population of people who will tell you that they have psychic, magical powers, that they can predict the future, that they can make contact with the deceased. Oh, they also say they will sell you astrology or other fortune-telling methods. Oh, they gladly sell you that, yes. And they also say that they can give you perpetual motion machines and free energy systems. They claim to be psychics or sensitives, whatever they claim. But the one thing that has made a big comeback just recently is this business of speaking with the dead. Now, to my innocent mind, dead implies incapable of communicating. You might agree with me on that. But these people, they tend to tell you that not only can they communicate with the dead, hi there, but they can hear the dead as well, and they can relay this information back to the living. I wonder if that's true. I don't think so, because this subculture of people use exactly the same gimmicks that we magicians do, exactly the same physical methods, the same psychological methods. And they effectively and profoundly deceive millions of people around the earth to their detriment. They deceive these people, cost them a lot of money, cost them a lot of emotional anguish. Billions of dollars are spent every year all over the globe on these charlatans. Now, I have two questions I would like to ask these people if I had the opportunity to do so. First question, I want to ask them to call up, because they do hear them through the ear. They listen to the spirits like this. I'm going to ask you to call up the ghost of my grandmother, because when she died, she had the family will, and she secreted it someplace. We don't know where it is. So we ask Granny, where is the will, Granny? What does Granny say? She says, I'm in heaven, and it's wonderful. I'm here with all my old friends, my deceased friends and my family, and all the puppy dogs and the kittens that I used to have when I was a little girl. And I love you, and I'll always be with you. Goodbye. And she didn't answer the damn question. Where is the will? Now, she could easily have said, oh, it's in the library on the second shelf behind the encyclopedia, but she doesn't say that. No, she doesn't. She doesn't bring any useful information to us. We paid a lot of money for that information, but we didn't get it. The second question that I'd like to ask, rather simple. Suppose I ask them to contact the spirit of my deceased father-in-law, as an example. Why do they insist on saying, remember they speak into his ear, why do they say, my name starts with J or M? Is this a hunting game, a hunting and fishing? What is it? Is it 20 questions? No, it's more like 120 questions, but it is a cruel, vicious, absolutely conscienceless, I'll be all right, keep your seats, game that these people play, and they take advantage of the innocent, the naive, the grieving, the needy people out there. Now, this is a process that is called cold reading. There's one fellow out there, Van Prague is his name, James Van Prague. He's one of the big practitioners of this sort of thing. John Edward, Sylvia Brown, and Rosemary Altea, they are other operators. There are hundreds of them all over the earth. But in this country, James Van Prague is very big. And what does he do? He likes to tell you how the deceased got deceased. The people he's talking to through his ear, you see. So what he says is very often, it's like this. He says, he tells me before he passed that he had trouble breathing. Folks, that's what dying is all about. You stop breathing and then you're dead. It's that simple. And that's the kind of information they're going to bring back to you? I don't think so. Now, these people will make guesses. They'll say things like, why am I getting electricity? He's saying to me, electricity. Was he an electrician? No. Did he ever have an electric razor? No. It was a game of hunting questions like this. This is what they go through. Now, folks often ask us at the James Randi Educational Foundation, they call me, they say, why are you so concerned about this, Mr. Randi? Isn't that just a lot of fun? No, it is not fun. It is a cruel farce. Now, it may bring a certain amount of comfort, but that comfort lasts only about 20 minutes or so, and then the people look in the mirror and they say, I just paid a lot of money for that reading, and what did she say to me? I love you. They always say that. They don't get any information. They don't get any value for what they spend. Now, Sylvia Brown is the big operator. We call her the Talons. Sylvia Brown, thank you. Sylvia Brown is the big operator in this field at this very moment. Now, Sylvia Brown, just to show you, she actually gets $700 for a 20-minute reading over the telephone. She doesn't even go there in person. And you have to wait up to 2 years because she's booked ahead that amount of time. You pay by credit card or whatever, and then she will call you sometime in the next 2 years. You can tell it's her. Hello, this is Sylvia Brown. That's her. You can tell right away. Now, Montel Williams is an intelligent man. We all know who he is on television. He's well educated, he's smart, he knows what Sylvia Brown is doing, but he doesn't give a damn. He just doesn't care. Because the bottom line is the sponsors love it, and he will expose her to television publicity all the time. Now, what does Sylvia Brown give you for that $700? She gives you the names of your guardian angels, that's first. Now, without that, how could we possibly function? She gives you the names of previous lives, who you were in previous lives. Duh. It turns out that the women that she gives readings for were all Babylonian princesses or something like that. And the men were all Grecian warriors fighting with Agamemnon. Nothing is ever said about a 14-year-old bootblack in the streets of London who died of consumption. He isn't worth bringing back, obviously. And the strange things, folks, you may have noticed this too. You see these folks on television. They never call anybody back from hell.
Everyone comes back from heaven, but never from hell. If they call back any of my friends, they're not going to, well, you see the story. Now, Sylvia Browne is an exception. An exception in one way, because the James Randi Educational Foundation, my foundation, offers a $1 million prize in negotiable bonds, very simply, won by all you have to do is prove any paranormal, occult, or supernatural event or power of any kind under proper observing conditions. It's very easy. Win the $1 million. Sylvia Browne is an exception in that she's the only professional psychic in the whole world that has accepted our challenge. She did this on the Larry King Live show on CNN 6.5 years ago, and we haven't heard from her since. Strange. She said it, first of all, that she didn't know how to contact me. Duh. A professional psychic who speaks to dead people, she can't reach me. I'm alive, you may have noticed. Well, pretty well, anyway. She couldn't reach me. Now she says she doesn't want to reach me because I'm a godless person. All the more reason to take the $1 million, wouldn't you think, Sylvia? Now, these people need to be stopped. Seriously now. They need to be stopped because this is a cruel farce. We get people coming to the foundation all the time. They're ruined financially and emotionally because they've given their money and their faith to these people. Now, I popped some pills earlier. I have to explain that to you. Homeopathy. Let's find out what that's all about. You've heard of it. It's an alternative form of healing, right? Homeopathy actually consists, and that's what this is. This is Calms Forte, 32 caplets of sleeping pills. I forgot to tell you that. I just ingested 6.5 days worth of sleeping pills. 6.5 days, that certainly is a fatal dose. It says right on the back here, in case of overdose, contact your poison control center immediately, and it gives an 800 number. Keep your seats, it's going to be okay. I don't really need it. Because I've been doing this stunt for audiences all over the world for the last 8 or 10 years, taking fatal doses of homeopathic sleeping pills. Why don't they affect me? The answer may surprise you. What is homeopathy? It's taking a medicine that really works and diluting it down, well beyond Avogadro's limit, diluting it down to the point where there's none of it left. Now, folks, this is not just a metaphor I'm going to give you now. It's true. It's exactly equivalent to taking one 325 milligram aspirin tablet, throwing it into the middle of Lake Tahoe, and then stirring it up, obviously with a very big stick, and waiting 2 years or so until the solution is homogeneous. Then when you get a headache, you take a sip of this water and voila, it is gone. Now that is true. That is what homeopathy is all about. And another claim that they make, you'll love this one. The more dilute the medicine is, they say, the more powerful it is. Now, wait a minute. We heard about a guy in Florida, the poor man. He was on homeopathic medicine. He died of an overdose. He forgot to take his pill. Work on it. Work on it. It's a ridiculous thing. It is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what we're doing believing in all this nonsense over all these years. Now, let me tell you, the James Randi Educational Foundation is waving this very big carrot. But I must say, the fact that nobody has taken us up on this offer doesn't mean that the powers don't exist. They might, someplace out there. Maybe these people are just independently wealthy. Well, with Sylvia Browne, I would think so. You know, $700 for a 20-minute reading over the telephone, that's more than lawyers make. I mean, that's a fabulous amount of money. These people don't need the $1 million, perhaps, but wouldn't you think they'd like to take it just to make me look silly? Just to get rid of this godless person out there that Sylvia Browne talks about all the time? I think that something needs to be done about this. We really would love to have suggestions from you folks on how to contact federal, state, and local authorities to get them to do something. If you find out, now, I understand, we've seen people even today speaking to us about AIDS epidemics and starving kids around the world and impure water supplies that people have to suffer with. Those are very important.
critically important to us, and we must do something about those problems. But at the same time, as Arthur C. Clarke said, you know, the rotting of the human mind. The business of believing in the paranormal and the occult and the supernatural, all of this total nonsense, this medieval thinking, I think something should be done about that, and it all lies in education. Largely, it's the media who are to blame for this sort of thing. They shamelessly promote all kinds of nonsense of this sort because it pleases the sponsors. It's the bottom line, the dollar line. That's what they're looking at. We really must do something about this. I'm willing to take your suggestions, and I'm willing to have you tune in to our webpage. It's www.randi.org. Go in there and look at the archives, and you will begin to understand much more of what I've been talking about today. You will see the records that we have. There's nothing like sitting in that library and having a family appear there and say that Mom gave away all the family fortune. She cashed in the CDs, she gave away the stocks and the certificates. That's really sad to hear. And it hasn't helped them one bit, hasn't solved any of their problems. Yes, there could be a rotting of the American mind and of minds all the way around the earth if we don't start to think sensibly about these things. Now, we've offered this carrot, as I say, we've dangled the carrot, we're waiting for the psychics to come forth and snap at it. Oh, we get lots of them, hundreds of them every year come by. These are dowsers and people who think that they can talk to the dead as well, but they're amateurs. They don't know how to evaluate their own so-called powers. The professionals never come near us, except in that case of Sylvia Brown that I told you about a moment ago. She did accept and then backed away. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm James Randi, and I'm waiting. Thank you.